you feel the world is yours when you were really, really young. You don't understand anything. You try, oh wow, this is
Yeah.
wonderful, this is great. And then the moment you have your first existential crisis, you're like, holy shit, oh no, this is not good. No, I don't want that.
If I don't do my best at figuring it out, I'm gonna spend this life in vain. That's my problem. I'm that paranoid.
You're that paranoid? I'm that nihilistic. I'm like, it's pointless anyway. Yeah, who's wasting time here? Okay, answer me this question, right? Who's wasting their time? Who's the biggest
Are
idiot?
you wasting my time?
Who's the biggest idiot in the room?
The only thing it means is that there is only the dream.
Right.
There's no you, there's no character. It's just this scenario that's playing out in some kind of space. So many people are complaining about how much work we have to do these days. Well, there's a direct correlation with how much we consume. So maybe we should adjust both and chill the hell out and everybody will be happier. That's got to be part of the equation. We are going to do episode 22 today. Already gone through a few iterations, but after the last couple of episodes where we went deep into all kinds of philosophical explorations, I was thinking of what to do next, what to pick as a topic to dive into. And that just made me start thinking about what do you find interesting in general, how your interests work and where your attention goes and why. And I thought that itself could be a very interesting and quite ranged topic as well, because not exactly sure where it could go. But one thing I realized is that for me, I do like one of the most fascinating topics that I can think of is just the way the mind works, the nature of the mind. As I was thinking like, okay, what all the things that are out there, like you could be interested in this and that and this and that, but that's just what interests me the most. That's just the most fascinating kind of the final frontier for me, right? And the best thing about it is that you can be the scientist because you have a mind. And I think that's what originally attracted me to meditation and stuff, because that's just you like investigating your own mind, its capabilities and its workings. So I thought we could do something like this, and just on the example of our own interests, what we talk about, what we communicate about, the study of our own interest and attention. Yeah, because it's such a massive process that is happening at the background every time, right? Even just from the stuff that you say, we like send each other little videos or links and stuff, like how does that happen? Why do you pick something as like, oh, this is a thing to share? Like, what's in it? What's the common theme that decides that you think something is, share worthy, or like what's in it that is good?
It's the meme, man.
Yeah.
It's that memeable sort of. Yeah, it's like, it's true, right? If you think about all the memes that people share, it's like, yeah, it's funny. And it's like, it's something about it where it's like, yes, I want other people to see this. This is, it's, because maybe it's like, it's saying something in which you never thought you have the words for it, or you never thought it in that way, but it's expressing a way that you're like, whoa, this is a good expression. And I want to share this with somebody else, because it's just useful. I suppose the impulse is like, this is useful information.
It's useful or memorable, right? Or funny, or
yeah, like, but it is useful in the sense that the transmission of that information you feel like is important for the other person to know, even if it's just a funny joke or something, right?
Yeah.
It's
so it's meaningful, and I think this is where meaning kind of really shows itself as relational, because meaning is kind of crafted in a relationship being, made or created or fostered between something and something. Because by itself, if you just sat there by yourself and like watch these things, they're not as meaningful. When you're like passing it on to someone and have them reflect or react to it, it also, it's like a conversation starter almost too, right?
Yeah.
because you're seeing this, you're like, yeah, you understand what this means, yes. You think the same way, yes. It's that. So a lot of it, yeah, is just communication. That you're sharing ideas. Yeah, the memes are there's very something very human about them because they're just communication of human experiences, really, right?
Yeah, it's a shortcut to like it's a symbol, right? It's like any of those emojis, right? Like it's a sign of like okay, you signaling something, and that vocabulary is kind of built. Memes are just a kind of a little bit more complex than than an emoji, right? Where is like a packet of information that when it's shared enough, everybody understood what it said. It's like learning a new word, right? You're learning a new word, you know what the word means, and everybody use it, and we all know what that when you use that word, what it means. So in a way, memes are like that, where is if you recall some of these. Let's see which one. Kind of went blank there,
And
but
there's so many, like some of them are just more popular and well established than others, but like they're all kinds of memes. They're memes in different countries. They're different
yeah,
memes as well, but they're
different
hilarious.
ideas, different. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
they're cultural memes.
Cultural, and then people understood it immediately when they see it,
Yeah.
and some of them, like, I don't know, it's kind of not specific or anything, but, like, you see it, and if it's applying a different way, it's also funnier when it's being used in a situation where it's not, exactly applicable, but kind of, and then, that creates in itself an additional humor and what have you, and that's just yeah, it's a way for people to share. Because otherwise, okay, what do you do? Every single day, you either like, you have to converse with people, right? Every single day you're talking with either your family or your friend or somebody, some stranger, you're communicating, right? So I think, and now and now I reminded of the fact that, solitary confinement is one of the most brutal punishment that we can actually met out, right? It's not some kind of violence or whatever. It's actually just locking a person in in a cell for extended period of time, right? And that is just shows how fundamental communication is. So
Hmm.
no matter how much of an introvert you think you are, you still want to talk to people. You still want to communicate because you go mad if you don't have anybody or anything to interact with, So that's fundamental. So that it means that the mind, its structure and function and everything, it does what it does because it's like it's constantly working and it needs information, it needs
Hmm.
stimuli, it needs all these kind of. This is why we're doom scrolling all the time, right? Like, give me information. You wake up in the morning, it's like, okay, I gotta grab my phone, check whatever, right? Give me stimulation, you know? I think obviously we've kind of gone overboard with this, and I think we're all guilty of it.
Yeah,
But
which is just that's another part that I wanted to still think about in tandem with this topic is, yeah, well, all these algorithms and technology and information and entertainment and everything. The question is like, is that what we want? Is that what you want? Because
probably not. But
why? Like the fact that this process is addicting is there's something there, right? Because it seems like is anything supposed to be addicting like that? Is anything supposed to be? Because there just seems to be so many things in the world are, right? There are people who are like who understand this, right? From what I understand, like the whole 12-step program that originated in US is kind of based on the fact that people just admit that they're addicts and they start like dealing with that reality directly. But what is that addiction? What is the nature of this addiction? Like, is that just something that us humans messing with natural biology by inventing, by becoming too smart and inventing too much artificial stuff that messes with
I
us?
think part of it, I mean, we did kind of mention this briefly from before, where addiction is really a placeholder for something that's missing in
Right.
somebody's life. So that's a main driver, I think. But I think part of it is also, well, yeah, we're smart enough to kind of discover all this stuff, right? Where through experimentations or what have you, we found that there are these chemicals. We found about how this addiction works, right? The neurological So either you can say that, oh, it's we found a loophole, somehow the brain can be hijacked like that, or that's just I mean, these things do exist and they do affect your mind in that way. So it's like, well, what then, one will ask, okay, but why that way? Right? What is it about these chemicals make your neuron does that and then make you feel in these sort of way. I mean, the end result was addiction is really like because you feel good of when you do these substances or whatever.
Yeah,
So meaning that you
but it
are
looks like originally all those processes would be triggered naturally and there would be no problem because if you are live in a tribe in a forest, you still need to exchange information. You still have dopamine when you complete a valuable task that
right.
benefits you and brings you food, which brings you pleasure. So there's a natural cycle where all of these behaviors are naturally plugged in and triggered at the right circumstances, and there
Yeah.
is no way to, uh, you know, uh,
Right. And this
to
reminded me
abuse it.
of the story about, Vietnam War vets. So back in the 70s after the Vietnam War, there is this phenomenon, I guess this phenomenon, they found that, because obviously a lot of these guys, some of them had a cocaine addiction. Because, when you go to war, fuck everything, right? Everything is fucked. So why not do some
Yeah.
cocaine, right? So some of them do come back with a cocaine addiction, but those who actually recovered are those who actually have family connections or something about their social circles that
Right. Something that
exist.
substitutes it essentially, right? Takes
Yeah.
its place.
But the problem with the people who don't have those when they come back from war,
They don't have no
they
reason
are
to abandon
just,
it. Yeah.
there is no reason for them to abandon it, or they just get worse and worse, because there's nothing stopping them from just because that's the hole in their heart, right?
Hmm.
Essentially, it's just like nobody, the war really, screwed them up, and then it's like, well, just do cocaine. I mean, feel good in the moment. That's all there is, right? So that's part of it. So psychologically speaking, yeah, is for sure that these addictions tend to happen because people are losing hope or they don't have any support structures in their life that can replace it, right? Or can easily just make them not want to do it because you already kind of, yeah, you basically have already had the requirement fulfilled in terms of all these hormonal, like just say, chemicals, you know, uh, like from dopamine
Yeah.
to all this, like, yeah, you already experience all those things that you are supposed to naturally feel, and you do feel fulfilled. And it's like, okay, yeah, I don't need drugs. I don't need that. I need all this stuff to make me
Yeah. Yeah. You have
get
no
screwed
need
up.
for
And
it. You have no space for it. Yeah, it's interesting. So environment and you just the people connections really largely influence your life like that. And when you are cut off from that and you are in an environment where you already have access to these substances or technologies that you can abuse, just you essentially your own biology and psychology becomes your own enemy because your whole system gets hijacked. You have no motivation, no reasons to change what is
yeah,
because you have some kind of comfort, some kind of good stuff that you can feel, and that's enough for you, or so you think.
and there's also that aspect of, I keep when I learn about the biology or human body and all that, I do feel like we as I just say organisms, we are fundamentally built on a blueprint that is kind of like really kind of outdated in a way because it's like our whole body have this kind of really dumb way to signal things, like I keep I keep recalling the fact that pain signals like yeah, I got it, I don't need this much pain for me to know that I'm in trouble, right? But it just that's how it works. So meaning that these are almost foolproof systems that are evolved, right, where
Yeah, but they're not as foolproof, right? It's almost like we're finding ways to find loopholes in all these systems because like
yeah,
in a foolproof system, like if it was intelligent to the point like, the user doesn't get harmed no matter what happens, they would not allow the human, the overall system to enter into a self-destructive behavior loop where you're like
yeah,
you're consuming
no,
bigger and bigger amounts of
yeah,
harmful substances.
so I guess foolproof is the wrong word I use. I think what I
Yeah.
meant was the idea that it's a really rudimentary system. Like it's kind of like it's so extreme, but it get the job done, right? Like it's a some sort of like, okay, just secrete these hormones and make them go crazy, and that's solve the problem, like in terms of fight or flight, right? So it's something like that because it can't pinpoint. It's not intelligent enough in terms of the fundamental building block of
Or this stuff is literally novel, right? Because because again, like evolution works over really, really long periods of time. So if we've been exposed to, dangerous animals and for thousands of years, we evolved to, secrete adrenaline, and deal with that situation because it's been there. But now when we suddenly transform the whole society and
yeah.
people, and we can suddenly manufacture chemicals and industrial quantities, and they
Yeah.
are just a fact of life. Yeah, the evolution has not simply prepared for this.
It's the same way as why we gain weight in the modern time, right?
Right.
Because our lifestyle has changed, but the body's blueprint is like get fat
Yeah.
because fat is not there, right? Because it doesn't update the system. It's just like, yep, we're still living in the caveman days, right? It's like just get food. If food comes in, turn into fat and store that. That's for survival, right? So the brain doesn't. There's no way for it to learn that. That system is kind of like you can't teach it to not like we're already good, we're good, No, it's just continuously. So
Which is why, this makes me think that we are in such a unique time in just human development, human evolution, because we have to mind these things.
we're
You have to mind.
confused. It's
We're
confusing for the
confused
body.
because, yeah, because they're like, we just, we're dealing with all this stuff, and the hardware is like, it's
It's not
freaking
keeping
out,
up.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's overwhelming, it's confusing, it's just novel. And we are, for all intents and purposes, we are in a pivotal state because we're not going back, It's not willingly, unless
No.
a
Unless,
cataclysm
yeah.
happens and sends us back.
And then you send, but yeah.
Yeah, or we do it to ourselves. But like if we are able to keep it stable, and not blow ourselves up, we will just have more and more technology, more and more new substances. uh, so the change is upon us, and it's not going to be stopping anytime soon. But what that means for just a regular human going on forward, you do have to ground yourself essentially. You have to mind this stuff. You have to this is why it's big like in the self-help industry and the just holistic medicine industry. It's all about regulating your nervous system. You see it all over the YouTube, it's everywhere. It's like this is how to regulate your nervous system. Like it become really popular and mainstream these days. And I think that's the real deal because it prioritizes that. It just brings you back to the reality that, yeah, you do have a nervous system, you do have a, certain wirings and certain equilibriums to mind. And if you're not careful in this day and age, they'll be out of whack, you'll be feeling stressed, and you won't even know what's going on. So it is important to keep that in mind. But it's just very difficult, dude. Yeah, because of all these habits, because of so much stuff to do, right? So many videos to see, movies to see,
It
etc.
it is that.
It keeps you on the roller coaster, right?
I think that's fundamental to when we say we basically as humans we have these essentially this never ending hunger essentially as a metaphor I'd say, because this is why that's why we're greedy, because it's almost fundamentally encoded into our DNA, right? Because the body doesn't understand that. You just understand that we need more, right? Just the same as like your body is conditioned to get more calories. That's it. They don't care about if you're overfeeding yourself. They just like just do it, right? Just get more. And so if that's the fundamental kind of signal from our body, I think from the mind's perspective, that's also in a similar way. Like it's why it's hard to control ourselves because we also mentally understand, oh yeah, more money, better. That even though you don't consider the ramifications and what have you, but like you just think that more is good. More is, like, because you're always living this kind of scarcity mentality. Because yeah, if I don't have food, if I don't have all these things, then I'll suffer. So that's why that loop runs. It's like you want to avoid the negative consequences of anything that happens in the world and more positive. And so you chase those things. And those chemicals work that way as well. Because it's just It, it, basically it makes you survive, right? So it's almost like the evolution don't care about your actual welfare other than that you continue the genetic lineage. That's it, right? There's no
Mm.
rhyme or reason as long as you do it, which is why, you see people sometimes our behaviors are very predictable. It's just like, yep, get more resources, get more of this, and then we judge other people according to, socioeconomic status and this and that. Like, it's all part of that loop. So we never, you never have, we have never escaped that cycle, right? Because all human behaviors can be studied and sort of under the umbrella of evolutionary biology. It's all there. The behavioral stuff, like we study them and there are nuances, but by and large, it's run under the same program. That's just the biological prime directive, just to reproduce. That's it. There's no other, this is why you have these signals. You feel horny, you feel hungry, you feel all this, right? There's no stop. Just in the same way that the cell is programmed to live forever. In their programming, they just continue to divide. That's it. Meaning that if the condition is actually right, or if they don't actually end up dying, the cell dying, then you could theoretically live forever, because that's the programming. But the problem is obviously that in reality, organ fails, cell fails, there's degradation, there's chaos, entropy, and therefore you can't do it. So that's the only way that you are actually dying. It's not because your body doesn't want, it only expires because it met the physical limitation of the reality that we live in, as far as we know, right? So all I'm saying is this is all part of the game. It's almost like this is by design, right? So all of the other things that we consider, such as well-being and this and all this kind of control, yes, it's good for you, but it's almost like it's not encoded. Like you have to learn this. You have to learn to stop yourself from gorging yourself to death, or starve
Yeah.
yourself to death because you have some self-image about beauty and whatever, right? It's all kind of these problems that happens.
It's
It's
like
like,
there's still software and hardware, right? The hardware is this more slow, evolutionary, genetically defined biology that you are dealt, right? Even though apparently some genes, can be expressed depending on circumstances, which is still, to me, that's wild. But apparently that is the case, right? You can get into a situation where certain genes get triggered. I think I can imagine stuff like that. I think something like that happened to me a couple of times in life where, if you get into an extreme situation where, say, if your life is threatened, oh yeah, a different animal will take
yeah,
over
we'll
for
take
sure.
over. Yeah.
Because something like understands the danger and is like, okay, it's do or die now. So you gotta like get out of this no matter what. But that's like the fuzzy part of it, but still there is the hardware part which you can't change at all. But the software part is the culture essentially, which is it's shared with the society you live in because you never really live outside of society, and by the stuff you can personally learn and understand. So to me, this is the argument kind of for why you do want to have valuable knowledge that you can apply to better yourself, to optimize your system better. This is why for a long time I was really into picking up healthy habits because it just makes sense to me. It's the easiest thing to aim towards to acquire or get into because the reason and the benefit is there. Like there actually will be some kind of benefit. Like this is why I got into cold showers because I was looking into them, I was reading into them, people were saying it's like, yeah, this makes sense to me. Like there's an explanation, there's scientific explanation. So and it's free. So if you do
Yeah.
that, you're gonna have the benefits. I like sign me up. And that's why I got into it.
Yeah, it feels great once
Once you get used to it, yeah.
yeah, because you feel refreshed. It's just, yeah, your blood gets, pumping because
Yeah,
of the
it's an
difference in.
actual like stress relieving thing as well. Like sometimes like once in a while I still go to the sauna where you cycle the sauna and the cold plunge
Cold,
bath.
yeah.
That's great. Yeah, it's just you can feel the effects right away.
Yeah. So I just think from this point of view, yeah, it's almost like you have to wrestle your well being against your nature. you know? Because
Yes, that's the thing. Like you still have to like come out as some kind of main guy who is leading this project.
yeah.
Like
Which
you
is
can't
again,
be.
this is why it's mindfulness and awareness, right? Because if
Yeah.
you aren't aware, you just I'm just do whatever. I'm hungry, I'm gonna overeat. If I if I want
Yeah,
to
but to
drink, I'll
me, like
drink it.
that's the part where like whatever happened in that body positivity movement that was, I don't even know where it originated from. Like it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to so many people because what you want to justify any kind of impulse, no matter what, and just like like what is the explanation? What is the rationale there, right? The the fact is that if you fully accept, I don't know, you do anything that you have an impulse for, it's not gonna work.
No, it's
It's gonna
almost the
run
same
away
as
from you. You're
it's
gonna
the
run
same
this
as
body into the ground.
imagine if you do a addiction positivity too. Like, oh, I do cocaine. Well, yeah, it's, you do you, right? I do
Yeah,
fentanyl. Then it's yeah, you do you, right? You just be
yeah,
like you want to be the zombie, the crackhead. Like, yeah, if that's that you
yeah.
can't just permit everything. There's like these things are harmful to the person, and they're only doing it because like they want to be accepted, right? They don't want to be shamed, right? So the impulse is just like, oh, I want to, because basically they couldn't lose the weight for whatever reason. They're weak on their resolve to do it or whatever else, and they just want the easy way out, which is, oh, if society accept me as one, then I don't have to worry about being shamed or whatever, right? It's
But
just kind
the
of,
the problem with that stance that it's stupidity, because
it's not
it's
good for
like
you.
it's like the the s- outcomes, the consequences.
Yeah,
So it's like a child's logic. Just because you don't know and don't see the outcomes, or you don't think that they're bad, but like it cuts off like 20 years of your life,
yeah.
like why? What is the reason, right? Just because you don't want to do a little bit of a change and apply some kind of principle, because the biggest thing is that change is, like, to me, change is both easy and difficult. It's easy because it can be done just like that.
Yeah,
It can be done.
yeah. But
It's
just
doable. It's
it's the
actually doable.
but the sticking with it, right? The sort
It's
of
it's
changing
it's
the wiring. That's
yeah.
the hard part to
It's
continue
just
to.
it's but it's just this initial period where you have to persevere for a little bit just to start changing the gears and start getting the mind used to. It's that, but it's all mental, essentially. It really is. Because I've been through such situations where, like, I'd get fed up with something. I would have really strong determination to just, stay on a certain course. And I'd do it no problem, just because there is enough of a mental determination to do it. Now, what determines that? That is also tricky and variable, I believe, but I understand how to tap into it at this point. You kind of psych yourself up to it, and the way I do it is just I get really pissed off at it. I just, whatever it
Basically,
is,
yeah.
I declare war, okay?
Yeah,
It's like,
basically,
we're
yeah.
going to war, all right? And you'll see what it's like to war against me. So, and it's, to me, that's what makes it fun
In
as
a
well,
lot of
because,
way,
like,
that's how you maintain it, right?
I think
Because
so. Yeah.
otherwise, it's almost non-negotiable. Because again, it just reminds me of David Goggin, right? Like, I mean, he has
Yeah.
that life
That's the
experience of
extreme
like
example.
used to be fat, used to be picked on. It sucks on his own self-image and all this, right? He suffered, so he's like, I will never allow that to happen again. So again, that's that rage, right? He's like he's kind of waging war against himself, right? So sometimes, yeah, in extreme cases, you probably do need that. You just need that rage against yourself, and for you to improve you have to hate yourself so much that you will not allow yourself to get back to that state
Yeah.
again.
Or even not yourself, but essentially these aspects and these behaviors and these manifestations, right? You're going to completely externalize them. It's just, you can say these aspects of, personality or whatever it is not something I am willing to entertain.
Yeah,
I don't want this
draw the
as a
line. Yeah,
conscious human. This will not be part of me. And it is as easy as that, but it does require that determination, which is kind of the part that fascinates me. It's like, I wonder what determines that. Like, why are some humans so comfortable being, I don't know, in the bad, fixable circumstances, the stuff that is fixable, but somehow to them, like, it's not fixable, or they don't see that, or they don't want to change it? Like, what determines that? Because surely there are objectively better and worse ways to be. Like,
Yeah.
objectively being fit is objectively better. I don't know how you could argue against that, right?
I just think that it's just complacency in terms of, because obviously it's easy to get fat. It's easy to be complacent and just be lazy. And that's the consequences of it, right? Where, yeah, of course, it feels great to eat a fat burger and just not do anything.
But
But
to an extent, too, you see, like, to me, like, I would not be able to do it because as soon as I start getting a bit too heavy, I feel disgusted. I'm like, this sucks because I feel the difference. Like, I'm more sludgy. Like, I can't.
but
I
that's
feel
but
worse.
but that's only when you have the
I have
awareness
something to
to
compare it to.
understand that the consequences, right? Because a lot of people, they're just don't want to think about it. That's the thing. And it's like, it's hard work. Oh, it's go to the gym. Oh, that's so much work, and blah blah blah. All this
Yeah,
kind
but
of mental.
compared to the alternative, it's still the better choice. That's
Yeah,
the problem.
but
And
that's the
it's
problem
obvious to me.
where people, they just, I don't know, it's
So is it
slippery
just
slope, right?
intelligence?
No, they understand. I think that none of them are stupid to the fact that
So
this
it
is
is some
bad.
kind of acceptance
It's a
of like, you know what? Even with all this stuff that sucks, just because I get to chill, it's the better choice. You know, because at some level it has to reconcile in that way, right? Because it's this thinking,
it,
living,
you're
breathing
making
human
choices.
being with a
Compare,
subconscious.
yeah, it's like feel good right now or work your ass off and
Yeah.
sweat it off, and
I mean, everybody faces these choices, but I've built through these situations and I've talked to people who are essentially like they just embrace being degenerates. And I'm like, no, because I can see from here where
yeah,
that
where
road
that
leads,
leads. Yeah.
and I don't want to go there. Why would you want to
So
go there?
so in that way, yeah, it is about foresight,
Foresight, yeah,
right? Which means you got to think ahead, meaning that you are using your brain and mind to like basically seeing into the future, right? It's like, okay, if I go along this like this, then that will be the result. You can see it, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like, no, I want to avoid that. Therefore, I understand fundamentally I can't do that. So the drive sometimes just automatically gets started because you already understood you don't want that, and you're already motivated enough to not
yeah.
go that way, and
And for
therefore
some
you
people,
do.
maybe it's not enough that maybe it is very much related to experience. For example, you know, if you've never been fit in your life, you don't have a frame of reference of what it's like. So you may not
Yeah,
even know what's
there is
possible,
that.
you know?
I mean, you only see the result of other
Yeah.
people being fit. Like, oh, that's nice. But then you're like, oh, but then I had to do all this
Yeah,
work.
but
Then,
that's my favorite argument. I think I've used it to somebody before. Like, for example, yeah, like the life where I did yoga, like I spent a lot of years doing yoga, and your body adjusts. You know, so when I
yeah,
started, it's just torture. But when you do it for a while, I can't imagine my life without it. It's the same way. So, but if you had if I had the choice of having the body that I trained for many years versus having a body where I didn't train, I do have some experience in both, you know. So I would always choose the body that is fit because it's so much infinitely better that it's like it's no contest. It's like no matter what it costs, you
yeah.
do that because it's so much
It,
better
it,
experientially.
it reminds me. Sometimes I do some work where it's a solo job. So I do have the client who I move a couple things for them, but they are willing to help, right? Because it's cheaper. You just hire one guy, me, right? So it's
Dude,
cheaper
you
to
should
do.
not allow them to do that.
And bro, some of
Oh,
them
they
are
can't do it?
so out of shape. Like they can do it, but they're like lifting this thing and they're like, they're
Out
already.
of
And I was like, this is nothing. It's like, bro, this is something. Well, you should see how I do
That's
rest of my work.
conditioning. That's
It is
conditioning.
conditioning. So you can see the difference. So when your lifestyle is not physically intensive, yeah, you can't even move a thing that's like, it's relatively heavy, not even that heavy, but imagine doing all of that, getting this thing off and then into the building, whatever, right? Like all that, even that for a person who never worked physically is a lot of work, right? So it is conditioning, right? It's I'm amazed sometimes, like, oh wow, I'm able to work physically like this for an extended period of time without even feeling tired. It's like
Yeah,
it
that's
will be a
cool.
different case if you just never done it. It's just that's how basically use it or lose it, right? So I think there's the mind, the body, anything is like you need to use it to keep it
Yeah,
sharp, keep it, well
yeah,
oiled.
which is
Otherwise,
another good point to all of this. So it kind of ties into the human needs, because, but it's still like, it kind of looks like different people have the different needs. But definitely, I would say that there's the physical wellness, right? That there's the the mind. I would split the mind part into the intellectual part. So to keep your intellect sharp, you need to engage the intellect, but also a spiritual part, which is more something for the soul, but it has to do something with dealing either with
it's
mystery or creativity, something like that.
but that's really just the fundamental
So it's like physical,
drive. Is the
intellectual,
drive.
spiritual, something
I
like this.
think anything spiritual is really about drive. It's really about the purpose of why you're doing anything, really. Like it's not the knowledge part you can learn, right? That you can, I mean, you can learn anything about
Yeah,
the
knowledge
physical
is more
world,
practical application
practical
of
skill
of
and,
of something that,
acquisition.
yeah.
But anything spiritual, like if you think why would a person get spiritual, is because there's something more to it than just what they see in the world that they're pursuing for. It's the
Yeah,
again,
that's why I'm
it's the
saying
is the ultimate meaning, right? It's the idea that okay, why am
yeah,
I waking
it
up
has
in the
something
morning?
to do with the mystery of it too.
Right? It's like I'm waking up in the morning because I believe this, and this, right? Because it's like, and then the fact that you can't have the answer, almost, right? It's like it's not something in which you can answer by your knowledge or skill or anything, right? Because anything spiritual, it's almost like, well, you just have to choose to believe that this is true
This is
and
why,
it
like I'm
makes
saying,
sense
it's
to
kind of
you.
like spiritual. It is like about relationship with the unknown, something like that, because unknown exists. It's
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 because,
it's the it's this whole world.
how,
We don't know what anything is.
yeah, how I see this in a kind of maybe technical descriptionary way about spirituality is that it's almost like it's the only quantity that which you have to have an answer, but you don't. Where you have an intellect enough
You have
to
to have
understand
your own
about.
answer.
It's like you have the intelligence to understand about the world, the external world. You can learn anything about the external world and understand what it's about. Learning about cycles, learning about all these kind of patterns. Okay, that satisfies your innate drive to find answers to why everything is, right? But the only question in which you don't have is the spiritual question, the religious question, the whatever that question you don't have, right? So that's you can answer anything else in life except that. So you do fundamentally want to have an answer. So you do search for and you do find some kind of answer that satisfies your own inner search. Because otherwise you feel restless. It's like, well, there's still that question I can't, it's not answered,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
There is. That's why, like, to me, that part is still curious about this mind that is, because I detected in myself as well, right? Because we've had so many conversations where we came to a point where there was an insight where it was like, okay, this and this, but I realized that it doesn't exactly stick. It's not like it shuts up that searching mind, for me at least. I noticed it because, yeah, certain topics I still revisit, I still re-question, and those answers, even though sometimes we come to it again and again, it's they don't satisfy that urge for some reason. So I just noticed and I realized that this is a quality of the mind. It doesn't stop,
yeah. So
and which means that you have to account for it, which means like this is where like I'm coming back to meditation as the cure for that. Essentially, is that meditation is both a practice and a training, because it does teach your mind to calm down and to kind of just be present with what is, because otherwise the mind, at least in me, I do
it
feel it,
keeps,
like
yeah,
it keeps doing the thing and you can't stop it like that. So only with time you gradually can stop it to like, okay, just chill out, just it's all good. And I can't tell whether it's a symptom of modern times, of biology, of what, but
maybe a
it's a
combination
fact.
of all of these, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Because you
fact
just
that it's doing.
constantly just go, but why though? It's
Yeah,
like, but why though?
yeah.
It's
No,
just
that's the whole reason I think for this podcast, because like I just can't stop that monkey. It gets bad to the point where like that the video games that I like to play, like I would play a Path of Exile, like I was playing it on my own. I'm like, this is so stupid, dude.
It is stupid. It is stupid, right? Any game. It's not just that game. It's like any game is stupid. It's like, okay, you do a whole bunch of things. You just click a whole bunch of things. You spend hours on it, And you got to call up your friends like, yo, we're doing this right now. Clicking buttons and it's the exact sequence.
Exactly. So I was doing it. My analytical mind like goes in the behind. All this game is for you to figure out the sequence of buttons system. So you can execute a combo, so you can maximize the damage in a unit of time. That's the whole game. That's the only thing that's happening here. And the visualization is just to make it like engaging. But on the backbone, that's what's happening.
The systems.
And I'm like, do I like this? Is this what I like?
But that's life. It's like practicing for life, right? It's like life is like this. There's a whole bunch of system out there, and you have to fit yourself into that system to make it work.
I'm starting to question myself. What do I like about this? And then this is just an analytical mind keeps going on it. And what it like with asking these questions, they also come down to answers that really the only thing that's happening here is that players are versus game developers. Game developers are creating these complex ass systems. Like, we're going to make all these gems, all these parameters, all these conditions. And the user's job is to figure out how to put it together into the most effective build. Really, that's the whole crux of that whole game.
Yeah.
But that is stupid. That is so dumb if you think about it. Because what's going to happen if you do that? Nothing's going to happen.
Everything is stupid in life, okay? Yeah. Everything, every single thing that exists, it can be stupid if you think about it. It's like, why do we do that? Why do we? This is idiotic. Doesn't make any sense. But then that's how it goes.
But so like in the same line of thought, because I've gone there many times, I'm starting to think, so what is the difference between spending your time this way or that way? Because still there is nobody to tell you what's a good way to spend your time, what to spend your energy on. Millions of people are doing this, millions of people are doing that. So this is, I guess, partially why I'm interested in philosophy, because it does explore these different, it's essentially philosophy to me is a lot about what is good and what is bad.
Yeah.
It's an exploration, because you can argue for so many things, right? That's the part that fascinates me, that you can really take a stance for anything. You could justify, being obese if you're a good philosopher. I'm sure you could. I'm sure you'd be like,
find words that...
Isn't that what all great men want in the end? To be fat and lazy in a bed surrounded by beautiful women? You could do something like that with it, yeah? And you wouldn't be able to argue with that. But I was thinking about that, the fact that it's like, it's just you trying to, it's a thing to really to exercise your mind. That's the way I see it, to keep your mind busy. From that standpoint on, something like a video game is almost like no different from meditation, because you do get into a state of flow. But the difference is that here, like your attention is really like occupied by all these details. So it's like more dispersed. But in meditation, it's the opposite. It's like, because your mind is supposed to get one pointed. So, but still, like, what is the difference functionally, experientially, and in results? Like, if you played a game for several hours, did you satisfy some need? Like, what happened that is good? Why did you want to play the game?
What's the difference between a duck?
Yes,
that's the thing, right? You can't
justify it.
It's a trick question. You can't justify it. It's like, okay, I spent all these hours. Yeah, I played this. Okay, it's fun, but why?
Yeah,
but why is it fun, right?
Why is it fun? Is that good fun? Is that healthy fun? Is that bad fun? Do you want to keep doing it? Because like with something like video games, especially with playing it for this many years. Because as soon as I've become aware that video games exist, I've never stopped playing ever since.
Yeah.
As soon as I found that they exist, like, I need to get myself all the games, and I need everybody to go away and I'm going to play these games. And it's been happening
Yeah.
for decades. So something is going on there. But the second thing is, yeah, is that bad? Is that a problem? Because ultimately, you're spending your life, you're spending real time that is finite
But
on this stuff.
yeah, but think about it, right? So playing a game is running scenarios, right? It's the same as your brain daydreaming, it's like making up whatever, right? So I think that gaming loop, so to speak, not just
Plugs into
specific
that.
for that game, but for all games, they have a loop. They all have a gaming loop of what you do first step, second, third, and to complete that whole. Uh, there is a study of games called ludology, right? They study this stuff like why does a game work, why does it, and they try to design it like, oh, why is it addicting, why is it, so there's definitely a circuitry in the brain that like, ooh, this information is juicy, this system, like, you get drawn into it because you're like, oh, this is puzzle solving, right? So there's something about it, the brain just loves how to solve these. Oh, I see a
Yeah.
challenge, I see a problem, I want to solve this. There's that, maybe again, there's that dopamine thing, like the anticipation that you're going to solve this, or you're going
Yeah.
to get some kind of reward, or that's the system, right? So it's the dopamine part of it,
It's
where it's
true.
the chase
You're
after.
right. It's really plugged into this problem solving mechanism, which something just fundamentally we like solving any kind of puzzle, really, because
Yeah.
it's a puzzle in the sense that you need to figure out how to do it well, how to like not
And
die, how to do the
there's a
challenge.
accomplishment, sense of
Yeah.
accomplishment too, right? You figure out the bill, you figure, oh, it's working, oh, I did this, I did, so in the same way that in real life is also that too, like you get the feedback, right? If you do a good job, you got good feedback, you maybe get a raise, or if you do a bad job, you're gonna, you don't have a bad review, you're gonna have a bad performance review, and things are gonna go bad, right? So they're all kind of these kind of levers in reality, right? All these kind of incentives and disincentives that are building this system in which we call modern life, right? You have all these, dude, just go outside. It's like there's so many systems. There's plane flying over. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of activity going on. There's a whole bunch of things that people are doing to satisfy, I don't know, right? They're from their basic need to live to other things that they're trying to do, right? And everything in between, right? From there are people running scams. There are actually people trying to just get by, and there's all kinds of activity going on. But there's always a reason. There's always a rationale behind it. And really, everybody's playing games, man. That's basically there's just a virtual computer games. Video games is just a virtual version. But as they say, we're all playing a series of games in life, right? It's a set of rules, sets of standards, sets of things that you're trying to play along in the system to satisfy the result of you gaining something, right? Because again, like we say, everything is stupid. Because think about it. What's the value of money? What's money? What's all this? It's all arbitrarily determined, right? It's all, I mean, relative to what? Because there is no value, so to speak, in anything in the universe. We attach that value to it by making judgment calls, right? And if you think about things like debt or whatever, these are things that we build. We build a system by which, okay, you borrow money and you have to pay this interest to satisfy the incentive, and that builds itself up. The whole economy, let's just say if the economy is heavily indebted, they made it that way. They made it that way to satisfy a certain thing. And then there are obviously runaway effects that happens when you don't do a certain thing. And it's a complex thing. Just like a video game, it can be complex. In the case of Path of Exile, I mean, even we are amazed at how much modifier there is to change the gameplay and satisfy all these loops and what have you to make it work, right? There's so many different numbers and things that are being calculated. So in the real life, in the economy, it's the same thing. But these are all man-made. It doesn't have to exist, right? The modern monetary system doesn't even have to exist, but we made it that way. And that incentive are just kind of like build itself up, and all the problems and benefit that come with it is being built. Just like a game have bugs. A game have features and bugs. And they have intentions of how they want to build it, but they build it this way. But then sometimes that interaction can have consequences that they never thought of, like bugs that happens when you put something together. right? So, and then they had to fix it. They had to find a way to make it fair. This is the same thing as the modern day life, right? The government is trying to fix the economy. They try to fix some problems, and they're also contributing to some of the problems, right? It's like it's a whole big game, and the patches just I don't know. I mean, they keep coming, but then somehow like it's ineffectual in real life. Like, it's not as doesn't fix a lot of the
Well,
things.
yes, I mean, like everything is complex, even the games with all this code. But yeah, I think this answer it in a good way where we're still picking some kind of a game, some kind of a form of it's still entertainment, right? Because in any form of entertainment, your mind is engaged. It's doing something, even if it's just watching a movie. There's still a lot of stuff happening in the background. There's imagination involved, there's skill involved, etc. But I'm curious, like, to dive deeper into the games a little bit because, like, in the Path of Exile, like especially it's you can feel it in the end game where there's always the tension throughout the game. You can feel it, like some parts that become too easy, where you've become too good, where you got too much good equipment, etc. And so it becomes too easy where you're just plowing through it. You don't have to do much. And then it becomes too difficult, say in an end game where just the level of challenge can be raised a bit too far, where it's like you're not fast enough, you don't have enough protection, etc. So you can't progress far. But I'm like, because in that game specifically, that edge is felt so well, more than in other games, because the whole process of the game is just this one bigger escalation into more and more deadly mobs that you have to go through, right? That, and the high end of it, you feel that edge. And like, to me, like the biggest bother in that game is the lag, because it essentially intervenes into the whole gameplay.
Yeah.
Because if the game wasn't there, you'd be able to zone out so well that you would disappear for hours, because everything would be so, like,
It's working.
it has something to do with predictability of it. Because I think why things are so engaging in video games is that mind is trying to predict stuff. And if you are, because we're good at calculating, like you see all of these factors, right? What makes a good player? Is their awareness and their ability to respond to change in circumstances.
Yeah.
So this reading of change and the rate of change, I think, is what engages the mind the most. And they're like, okay, I see all these factors and I'm calculating them. I see that guy running from there, and if I use my ability from here, and you plan and project, but it's in real time and it's very fast. And that's what's engaging the mind, I think. It has something to do with this constructing the future, predicting the future, because that's where the creative control and gameplay comes in, right? You can say, I'm going to develop my character that it will do a stun leap and then a spell, and you predict because it's going to be effective because of these parameters. And so it's engagement with reality, where it's both it gives you the ability to predict, but ultimately the situation is unpredictable because it evolves suddenly. The monkey is charging you, right? And you have to, like, whoa, what did I do? And you have to react, and you have to use
You
your
get
faculties
smashed.
in real time and get smashed if you're not attentive enough. See, but if you're attentive enough, you do handle it well.
But you see in real life, then it's the same thing with all the actual sports game, right?
Yeah.
From racing to
Yeah.
basketball,
True.
soccer, right? It's all like, okay, sets of rules are there, right? But it's unpredictable who's going to win because it's depending on the player skills, what their performance, actual performance. So there has to be a kind of, it's like control chaos, basically, right? You control the environment somewhat, but there are always going to be interactions of unpredictability. And this is the interchange that make it almost addicting to people. Is like people love, like we have a interesting relationship with the unknown. Sometimes we're like, we embrace it, like we love the unknown, but sometimes we're so afraid of it, right? It's like gambling is the unknown. It's like, oh yeah, it might happen, it might not happen, right? Again, this is that dopamine thing. It's like the anticipation is like, you anticipating getting something, but it's the quantity is unknown. There's no way for you to know until the actual result comes in. So there is that expectation that you want it to be a certain way, right? But yeah, we're playing this all the time. right? Anytime you make a decision in life, you have anticipation of the result that you think is gonna get, and then there's the actual, situation of, the really complex nature of reality that you're dealing with. So in a lot of ways, we want to control that, and we also kind of want it not to be completely controlled. This is the problem when it comes to humans in terms of how they decide, okay, how much is too much, how much control, how much freedom, how much this type of thing, right?
I think that's like, yeah, it also, this is at the crux of the topic as well. See, like, this has the potential to go into so many different tangents right now because there's so many things involved, but the this is a big part of it as well, because one of the other big things that I keep coming back to and asking is like, what do you want, right? What do you actually want? Because there's things that you think you want, right?
Yeah.
And there's things that actually want. And it has, I believe it has something to do with this whole concept of subconscious, right? Because some of the desires have to be shaped by those underlying processes, and you got to be, so it means that some of the desires you're not even fully aware of. So
Yeah.
some of the desires you're subconsciously maybe reaching out towards. But what does that mean? Like, to me, that still like sounds like schizophrenic type of stuff, because that means that there's some kind of other you that is trying to live in another way that you consciously live in. Like
It's
you,
like, because I keep thinking about it, where it's like, I think all of us have this almost, let's just say, like a split personality, just
yeah,
not in the way of like not bad enough that it will actually split into different people, different personality, but you
it's more
do have
subtle.
these, yeah, you do have these aspects of yourself where like, okay, that part of me wants certain things, and then there are other aspects of myself that maybe I don't have full control of. Like, in case of you, like you said, say in the example, if you get angry, right, you lose yourself, right? Then you become a totally different person. You don't even you lose part, like you become a totally different person almost, right? So what is that? That's obviously something in which is the underlying you, quote, so to speak, without the reasoning
Hmm.
and the and the ego, let's just say. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's the
yeah,
correct way to say it, but
yeah,
like it's kind of like you when you lose that veneer of control, when you lose that veneer of like reasoning and
yeah,
rationale
yeah.
to say why I am this or whatever, to explain yourself away, is that almost like that inner spirit. Like it's like this is the fundamental part of you that
So
you try to.
so then it kind of does feel like that psyche of which the whole thing is comprised. It's like layers, right? There are different layers that can either engage or get exposed to in different situations. But what does that mean? Yeah, that does sound like you're comprised of many different elements that can like take over
Yeah,
and at different
because
times.
there are times when, in cases
That's crazy.
it's rare cases, but I sometimes I get angry because at work of just things not working the way I want it to, which is most of the time. Most of the time, I'm good at controlling my temper, but there are times where I'm so pressed for time or whatever, and I get kind of worked up. And there are times where, like, yeah, I do have outbursts against other people where they just in my way or something they're doing just kind of really piss me off because they're impeding my work or something. And I do blow up. And I feel it's like I don't have control over that. I try to
Right.
tell myself, okay, don't get
Yeah.
worked up. It's not worth it. There's no need to,
Intellectually, you
it is what
understand
it is.
it.
But then it's like, part of that means like, screw that. No, I'm gonna unleash on this guy because he's in my way. He's doing all this stuff that's just really,
Yeah,
screwing
yeah.
my work up and whatever, right? So, and I couldn't control it a lot of the time. It's like it just takes so much kind of power, mental power, to just like really make yourself, because I can, and I'm the kind of person who doesn't really get worked up over most of anything. But I know there are people who are like so easily just like
But yeah.
insights, like just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
boom, right?
They
And I
don't
could
ever
see
even
how,
filter anything.
yeah, I mean, imagine these people had to go to anger management because they just couldn't control it, right? It's like when it just happens, it's just like a volcano blow up. Like, how are you gonna stop that, right?
But also like there's levels to this stuff, and I mean, you'd be surprised by what is like socially acceptable in society, because
Yeah,
at the bottom line, sometimes I think that like everybody, we all gotta be just generally more understanding and kind and compassionate toward each other, just because I think everybody is a little bit crazy. Because there's no,
Yeah.
what's the baseline, right? The
No, there's no
baseline is
baseline.
that it's very difficult, but imagine a society with full of unique individuals where to some their normal baseline way of their nervous system interacting with others is by screaming and being very empathetic and being just very emotional and just no control whatsoever. Like I've met such people and they're just that person. Like they're normal by all considerations, but they're really tough to be around with all the time. But they're just like a normal person. And they have their whole life. They have their own strength because of that as well, of course, right? Some of them like make really great kind of leaders, CEOs, entrepreneurs because they essentially just plow through, right? They're not stopping any for a second. They just keep that thing on, and there's no volume dial. It's on 111% like at all times. But that's just a person. It's not like they have a condition, By somebody's metric, they could have diagnosed them with something. But if you're gonna do that, you can diagnose every single person on earth with something.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be palatable to some people or other. So that's the crazy part, is that at the end of the day, we still have to live with each other with all the uniqueness that everybody offers. And you can't really go and apply this, like, you're inconveniencing me, you're asshole. This why
Yeah.
it doesn't work. But that reaction naturally is there. It's very strange when it happens. I noticed like because anger also, like anger and all those aggressive emotions, they do linger. So normal day, like, yeah, if I'm just like in this, you're essentially calm, right? The whole day will be calm. But on the days where you had to experience a strong emotion of anger, just everything has that much more potential to piss you off.
Yeah.
The people get in your way, and it's funny. I noticed that because like I was just like riding my bicycle on that day when I was angry, and it was like just people like, oh, you're getting in my way. It was like, but no, these people just exist and live,
Yeah, they
right?
just do their thing.
But you're like, you freaking, you
Yeah.
just get
So
angry for that,
is
and
the
it's just so
pure ego,
silly.
right? Is it pure like
Yeah,
I'm the center of attention because
I think so.
obviously
It's
you're
that.
only thinking about yourself at that
Yeah,
moment. So yeah, so everything seems like, oh, these people are in my way, but really they're doing their thing, right? So it's not that. It's just like there's situations in life which yeah, you encounter where okay, you encounter these other human beings doing their thing as well. So it's like yeah, it's not that nobody's in your way other than just well you do encounter these people doing their
yeah,
thing and
especially
therefore
when
you
you're
have to figure out how to navigate that, right? It's
yeah.
just nothing wrong with what they're doing. It's just
Like that's why to me like road rage is so funny, because it's
yeah,
like it's like, dude, nobody has any malicious intent. It's just some people are more attentive than others. Some people maybe like are more deliberately asshole than others, and they could be
yeah,
cutting you off and stuff. But for example, like I do not understand the concept of tailgating. I just don't
yeah.
understand what that is, what that even is.
Why what
Like,
doing
why
that
does it?
for?
Yeah, why do people do that? Like, what is that? Are they trying to make other people like? What is why are they doing that? What is tailgating for?
It's I don't know. It's a sort of
Is it just to annoy the person that they're
yeah.
coming
It's
close
more
to
of
you or
a
something?
yeah. It's just being you being annoyed, but then
But
you
why
can't
would?
do anything about it
Yeah,
though
why would
because
would I care?
Because
Like, I don't care.
if you escalate, you're gonna get into an accident, and you don't want that. So it's
Okay,
almost
so they're
like,
deliberately like endangering the
but
situation.
it's like
Okay.
passive aggressive almost. It's like you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just to
They're like
express
daring
some
a
kind of
person to like to engage with them, right?
yeah. So it's some kind of expression of anger, just like
Yeah,
dare you to do whatever.
yeah.
It's
Because like I wouldn't do nothing to me. I was like, yeah, do whatever. Like if you hit me, like I have a dash cam, so you're gonna be in trouble.
yeah.
So like, I don't care.
So I don't know. People have different way of expressing themselves. It's that's why
Yeah, but I think that's the crux of it. You were right. I think it's literally the ego. It's how ego manifests. It's this contraction of or you feel much more, yeah, separated and at the center of the world when you're in that mode. But somehow it is connected to like anger and just annoyance. But
because it
that
really,
part is real though, right?
but
Because you are a separate person doing separate things.
Any emotion is really based on the self, right? Anything, because you are being emotional, you're this entity, right? You are expressing these feelings that's pertain to you. So this is the reason why a lot of us are so hard for us to kind of it's hard not to be selfish, you
Hmm.
know, because fundamentally you're only thinking about yourself. Not that you're trying to, but that's just how you normally would. So you take some energy to be empathetic. That takes extra
And yeah,
perception.
and thoughtful about everything. And yeah, it's true. And I've felt the gradations of this as well, because like sometimes I literally modify my behavior to, let's say, harmonize some situation that is out there in the world, and that can be even towards strangers. It's kind of like, what's a good way? Well, the easiest example is that, like, I don't litter ever, ever in any circumstance, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. But to some people, that could be seen as going out of your way to say, save the trouble of, trashing up the environment, the planet, whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So a lot of times I would do something like that, where I would do the such thing. I would modify my own behavior just to benefit, like, even some specific people, but they will never even know about it.
Yeah.
But just because I know that
You can,
I have this choice right now, and if I act that way, some people will be better off because of that. I often do that because I recognize, yeah, there are other people, and we should all be doing good stuff for each other. And
that's empathy basically, because you
yeah,
ran the calculation. Okay. Imagine if I were the person who was supposed to
you'd
see that
want,
trash. You're
yeah,
like,
to be,
who the hell is this? Right? This not doesn't supposed to happen, but somebody really make that into a problem for somebody else. So you already run the calculation. Okay, I wouldn't want to be at that end of the thing, so therefore I don't litter because I don't want other people to feel
yeah,
that they
yeah.
need to do that
And
thing that I caused.
ideally, everybody would behave that in that way, right? And
But this is why in
but for some reason, many people don't, on a very basic level too. But like, to me, that there's something with littering that it boggles my mind. It just pisses me off to such an extent. There are certain memories that it etched into my mind, because I feel such a drastic emotion to it. I remember I was standing outside of some restaurant somewhere, I think, and I saw a dude who just came out for a smoke outside. He smoked up a cigarette, and it was his last cigarette, right? So he just crumpled the box of empty cigarettes and just
you throw it right.
threw it on the ground. And I'm like, how is this possible? Like, what is going on in that person's mind? You live here. It's a restaurant you go to, and just right there you put shit on the ground. What is the how is this happen? How are they not aware that
There
this is
was no
not good?
awareness or calculation of any of that sort. It's just
But
like,
that just means that people are so unconscious that,
yeah.
like, in real world life, like asleep while
Yeah, they don't
walking
think
around.
about any of that calculation of what if another person had to pick this up. This is social norms, all this stuff. They don't even consider any
But
of it.
it's so basic. It's like, do you want to live on streets covered with trash? Then why would you trash them? Like, what is there to think about? It's that. And I understand there's kind of no end to this type of thinking. You should ideally be aware of all kinds of things at all times. And I guess that's where the capacity of this awareness caps you off. Like, you can't be aware of everything, because it's like, yeah, there is no end to it. It's like, ideally you'd be thinking about everyone and everything at all times, but that would make it impossible to live as a
But you
as
see,
an
this is
individual.
the fundamental problem that we get into, which is very fun to think about when we see, for example, in movies, kind of expressing this idea. Okay, do you want to be controlled by an AI, let's just say, who can make all the right choices for
Right.
you?
Right.
Or do you have individual freedom and you can make choices even as bad as they can be for your health and you still make them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, this
So
is a good
it's this.
exercise.
Because as far as ego and kind of unselfishness or being selfless, let's just say, it's the same dynamic. The problem we come into is how much is too much. Because obviously ego do help us, right? To achieve your own goals that you want to achieve, to kind of fulfill some kind of feeling of achievement, to overcome challenges and so on. Yeah, that's ego. Without that, you would just have no sense of who you are at all. You're just literally just like don't even know what's going on, right? Because ego gave yourself a name. It gave yourself an identity.
Well,
It gave yourself a
apparently this is arguable. Like a book I've been reading recently, it's been really difficult for me to read it. I do it as an audiobook. It's called The Book of Not Knowing. Yeah, The Book of Not Knowing, exploring the true nature of self, mind, and consciousness. It's been so difficult to listen to it because for some reason,
there's all the
my mind
words.
instantly spaces out. But it essentially talks about how it's completely better to live without a self. And I think it's so difficult for me to think about it because it goes counter to your just
Right.
regular psychology. Because I space out, like I can't concentrate on it because the ideas in it, I guess, so radical. But it's trying to make its best case that you can totally safely live without a self. I'm just curious about what that means. I'll try to finish it, but I think at the end of it, I'll need to summarize it somehow just to understand what the actual points are. But yeah, it's the book of not knowing and exploring all these
Okay.
ideas. So there may be a way, right? There may be a way. It's just you don't know what that is. But
Well, that
yeah, to me, it sounds like what is in control, right? Somebody still has to be in control of making decisions and identifying priorities.
So this remind me of that thing you linked me before about the study of this kind of indigenous person who is the last of his
Oh yeah,
tribe, right?
yeah,
Where they don't have the concept, like he doesn't have a name for himself. He only knows what his tribe used to call him. So don't have a sense of I. So they don't mention themselves as I whatever, right? Uh, I mean, they do have a sense that they're a separate entity, right? Obviously, but they don't have, in terms of language and words, they don't have those. So in that way, it remind me that okay, for some of these kind of society, I guess their worldview is much more embedded into the natural order of things. So it's like they don't see themselves separate as man versus nature. They're essentially we are part of nature, and they don't make that separate distinction, even though them as individuals would make actions that are pertaining to themselves. But it's almost like they don't make the distinction as much. So it's almost like they don't think about it. I mean, yeah, for modern people, it's hard to comprehend, like, because we all have been
yeah,
taught this kind of like, oh, I'm this person with this name, with this whatever, identifiable.
yeah. It makes me think about. I think I mean, this is probably. I don't remember who studied this, but I believe this is studied. It's essentially, yes, we used to live as part of nature in its cycle completely, right? Because the weather is like this, you have crops. If the tiger population is like this, you are part of it. You're part of the existing environment and cycles of nature. You cannot be outside of them in any way, shape, or form. So you get used to be part of it. You're used to expecting and responding to the environment in sync. And I can just imagine what that way of life is like. You don't have time to think about anything else because your very survival is involved in it, but it's almost like that's the game. That's the only game. And you have to use all of your senses at 100% capacity at all times because there's no other choice.
And I also think that they probably don't really have much time to think for themselves. Like you're always living in a tribal
Yeah.
environment. You're
Everybody
never
always
alone
depends on
in
you.
terms of like I'm just sitting there thinking about what am I gonna do. No, you always have things you gotta do, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of already the task, the duty that you have. So in that living situation, it's almost the same. Imagine if you live with a big family. Like there's things going on, right? Always something. This remind me there must be wasn't there a Soviet show? It was really like a sitcom almost, shot in Khrushchevska, or the kind of building in the Soviet Union. And it was like this comedy thing where it's just this big ass building and everybody knows each other and everybody lives in that building, and it's the comical sort of interaction between all the neighbors. I think there was a, it must be an old show from Soviet Union
Sounds like
that,
Seinfeld, no?
no, but like I remember
Let me
watching,
see.
like
I'll look it up.
not personally watched, but I was made known of it. That there was a show like that where it was just, the funny thing is just the joke is really about the different characters have their quirks, and but they all live in this one big building, you know?
There's a TV comedy that's called Our Neighbors, which is explicitly about communal apartment life and neighbors.
Maybe it's
Maybe
that.
that's the one.
But just made me think of the idea that, yeah, there are certain societies, you know, at least in way in the past, that they do live in these kind of communities where everybody knows each other and they do their thing, and there is almost
Yeah.
no individual, like everybody consider everybody else part of their whole thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So life is almost chaotic, you know, like where just everything, things are happening. You're dealing with this stimuli of all these other individual doing things. So it's a very different way to live than what we do, right? Where
It's
we're
true.
just
That communal way of life, yeah. Like even my parents, they told me about their time, like in around university years, where they lived in,
dorm,
yeah, in that it's like a communal house that you would call it, but
right?
essentially it's, yeah, it sounds like a dorm because there the environment itself fosters that everybody talk to each other, and
Yeah,
also the fact that like nobody is wealthy to a point that they have everything. So the norm really
to share
is
all
to
of this
share
stuff.
everything.
Yeah,
So it would be a normal thing to do for anybody's like, guys, I had some money, I bought a bunch of booze, and you can bring food, he can bring food, you can bring people, and
yeah,
everybody just gets together and celebrates, even though nobody has nothing really. But magic happens when you all bring together, most of all people, you bring people together, everybody has fun, everybody got stories, jokes, everybody has emotions. It's a totally different way of life.
yeah. Like the introverted in me just cringes, but I do see
But
that it has its own.
it'd be part of the culture.
Yeah, you feel
You'd
you.
simply find your own expression within that
It's
culture.
actually probably better because you
It's
actually
better for sure.
feel greater. You feel
Yeah.
better because I think my experiences of being overseas really screw me up because
Yeah.
I know that my natural inclination is introversion, right? So probably even if I stay in China, I probably don't have that many friends. But because the society is more social oriented, I know for a fact if I stayed in China and as opposed to move overseas,
You'd be much more plugged into
I
society.
would be, yeah, I will have friends for sure. There got to be a couple people that you hang out with, right? You are more social just by necessity. You just have to because that's the society you live in. But my experience overseas, especially earlier when I was a kid, was very isolating. You don't know nobody, you don't speak the language well enough, and it's just, especially during high school, I was the outcast because I just had no choice. Like I can't mix with the
Yeah.
other a group of
Yeah, same was my
people.
experience.
And the problem also is because I had lived in the West for a while, and it's that period of like, okay, I my English are getting good enough. So I couldn't fit in with the Chinese group now because they are the more recent immigrants and whatever. So they can't speak English that well. So even some of my understanding and language and sort of kind of share the common, like there was no meme that we could share. I just say, right? There was less, there was a kind of obstacle because now I'm like reverse cultural shocked because of they're bringing the the new more recent developments or how things are in China, how they talk and whatever. So I can't fit in there too. So it was so isolating. I couldn't fit either. So I was just by myself, and it was in a way, a other way miserable, but it kind of really formed. It kind of formed who I am now, this
Yeah,
loner,
yeah.
by and large loner, and I'm like I already got comfortable with it, so I don't have no
Yeah.
problem now, and that can be a problem. I mean, it is, even though I'm comfortable with being a loner, it's like probably not the best that it could have.
Yeah,
You could
it's not
probably
the best.
could definitely have a more a circle of friends, but it never happened, and I never got used to that, and therefore I'm already kind of this way now, right? So
Yeah.
it's Yeah, but see, that's the problem. Not just about kind of immigrants' life and how to fit in, but also just modern society just make you more and more atomized. That's just kind of how the result of it is.
Yeah,
So
like people move around, people live far from each other. Like that Russian group of friends that I was in the network with, like they all live in different cities and they just somehow make it work because they just make the effort to. But it's, dude, they're all over the place. They're in different cities and they still like frequently, they just somehow organize their life around it, but they make sure they have common trips. Everybody always organizes something and they just make it travel. They go take several hours and drive to like a thing, every couple of weeks or so, and they participate in common events that way. But it takes it like you have to prioritize it, I guess,
yeah,
and that's what it takes these days. But like that's a huge, like you have to drive a lot with this because I see like these people do it that way. Obviously, that costs money. That takes a lot of time. To me, that's becomes your lifestyle. That's what you live for, and that's great. That's all perfect. But again, see, like different strokes for different folks. If you do this, you won't be able to do that as much. Just like I'm amazed that of how much time stuff takes. You really can't do that much stuff in the day, like in a week, and et
much,
cetera, right?
not that much.
Even with the energies and stuff that you want to spend, when you do have the time and space, you don't have as much energy and motivation, etc. Like I thought like, oh, I'd love to read that much, but like it's still like work to sit down and and concentrate and read and comprehend something, and you don't naturally want to do that in combination with everything else you have to do in just to maintain life, etc.
Yeah,
Lately, I've become more and more aware that I literally need to have sessions of where I don't do
reading time.
anything.
Yeah,
No, like don't do anything. So I started doing it much more deliberately because I mean, I think I've heard even of various creative people saying that that's the real where real creative stuff happens
yeah.
because
You need
there's just
the
something magical about it's almost like you're giving time and space to the real capacity, to the real creative capacity that works not consciously
yeah,
to,
yeah,
to do
exactly.
its thing, but it magically happens when you don't do nothing. So I these days I go for a walk with just nothing in my mind, like not music, no nothing, just not thinking. I'm not gonna think about this or that. I just go for a walk, and it turns into this meditation where something comes to mind, something else comes to mind, but you're
Yep,
not looking for anything.
that's
And I
how it
find those
works.
so valuable. It's the downtime essentially, and I hear that essentially we have less and less of that in modern time. The further we go back in time, the more time our ancestors spent not doing stuff. Like they just they had much more opportunity for that because the speed of life was different. You didn't
Yeah,
have to churn out 15 ideas for new articles every single day. Like we put
yeah,
all these quote on ourselves, but it's not natural. You you can't be productive 24 hours a day. You can't be churning out brilliant ideas. It just doesn't not how it works. There's a natural metabolism and a cycle to how you process information. So I decided to do a bit more of that deliberately, and I think that's been beneficial because it kind of helps with your motivation as well. Because otherwise, you keep thinking like, oh, I got to be on all the time. I got to be producing. I got to be doing this and that. Not really. You don't have to do nothing. You just have to find you still have to balance things out because it's so easy to get just lost in the sauce. But in the meantime, life just passes on, right? And you do have to live it in a way where it's pleasant because otherwise it loses the whole point, right? It has to be like, yeah, balanced out and not, you shouldn't be stressed out all the time and looking to do something. And it's not a natural way to be.
I just think that it's part of that problem of self-organization in terms of on a society level. You have all these aspects of Because you see, the problem is we're really dividing ourselves way too rigidly in terms of socioeconomic class or whatever, right? So everything is supposed to have this. Now, they're not really supposed, but like how we break things down are essentially classes of people, basically try to compartmentalize everything in this society, and you have. But because of the fact that you have, maybe this is also a historical problem, because once you have these classes, inevitably you have the people who has more resources and things, they will try to control the ones down. This, I'm not trying to sprout some conspiracy or whatever, but it's the fact that this structure, this hierarchy of, like, just say in a working environment, right? The CEO or whoever controls the corporation, yeah, they are for profit. So they want to extract all the work that you as a worker are supposed to give to them, right? So this is the part of the problem of modern society where basically people are exploited for their usefulness to the extreme, especially now with the advent of new technology and everything. So it's almost like we gauge life as sort of how much work that it can be squeezed out of, instead of like figuring out what's the best way to, because people are just essentially running to survive, right? They're running to, like, okay, I need to get enough money, and in order to get enough money, I like some people call it the survival token. I really like that. Like, yeah, I need more survival token, so I need to do this thing I don't want to do to
Yeah,
get it.
yeah,
But then it's like
yeah,
it's so hard to justify. Okay, why am I doing all this stuff? Right? It's like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so
That's
again, it's the
why it's
rat
like
race, right? That
it's
you
soul
just got
crushing. Yeah,
you get sucked into this thing, and you have barely any time to think about, because they have all this mandate about, oh, you got to work harder, you got to do all this stuff, and essentially we're all bamboozled into doing all these things that we don't want to do for a productivity for what? For, are we benefiting from this, or is it just we're benefiting the few
yeah,
people who can get
yeah.
more money out
Exactly.
of this whole deal, right?
Like I was thinking about this stuff recently because like I am at a crossroads. I have several choices of what to do, and yeah, I was thinking about like even though it is essentially the norm for so many people to just go find a job, and I could find a high paying job, relatively high paying job, but knowing what I know about that type
The
of work, that type of
environment and
industry, the environment,
yeah,
and the whole structure, the whole logic of it, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, for all those reasons that you mentioned, because at the core of it, it's essentially that soul is going to be starved. It's like I'm not going to be getting something crucial, something
yeah,
very important out of this arrangement, despite getting high pay. So, in other words, with this extended analysis, it ain't worth the squeeze.
yeah,
That's what it
it
comes
is.
down
Yeah,
to because I know I'm going to have to be working freaking 10 hours plus a day. The work never really stops because it's all virtual, which means it's all in your head. It lives there rent free now. So it doesn't cost them any money because you have to think about this stuff because these problems are complex and multidimensional, involve other people, involve politics. Some of them threaten you. So your instincts are involved. They don't let you go because if there's a threat, you don't get to magically forget about it
yeah,
till tomorrow. Maybe if you drink yourself to sleep, maybe, which is a lot of people revert to. So you see how your whole way of life then goes to crap because of you're in that situation now. That's your environment. That's your life. Why would you want that life? That it's not worth any money if your whole life is essentially suffering because it's a fact. I've seen there's so many accounts on Instagram these days that I just naturally got served to me. So I started looking at all of them. There's just memes and all these because there's so many remote workers these days and they work in corporate and it's all the same situations. It's people dealing with lots of bullshit, with lots of corporate speak, with inadequate leadership, with bullshit projects, with lies, with manipulations, with silliness, with thoughtlessness. And it's like, why is that so prevalent? To me, it means that all these companies, so many companies, they're just bullshit. People don't know what the hell they're doing. And as a result, it's like a hell. It's a hell of a sort where a lot of this stuff is absurd, it's meaningless, and it's just
and
people take advantage of other people.
And it goes back to what we talked about, I think, from last episode about how these billionaires are losing their humanity. They're losing their
Right.
sort of empathy because like they showed, right? Like Elon Musk, for example, used to be a stand-up guy, more or less. Like he's actually, if you see, I mean, they found all these old interviews with him. He actually expressed all these ideas that he wanted to do all these things for humanity. That's when he wasn't that rich, right? When he still had dreams. But now with money, over time, it's just like, it's just like there's no longer that dream anymore. He doesn't do these things because of, it's all about corporate interests or how to gain more influence and whatever, right? He's no longer kind of based every decision on like, I actually want to do this thing for people, for us to be multiplanetary or whatever. Or maybe that's still part of what he wanted to do, but he's no longer kind of in it for that. It's got corrupted essentially. Same with
Yeah.
Amazon, with Jeff Bezos. It's like the same. They sprout all these crazy nonsense now. But he used to be
They're
the guy
completely
who
detached from
started in a
reality.
garage. You're supposed to understand how hard it is to run a business.
Like,
There's no empathy anymore. They're like, oh,
yeah, these you forget. These people forget what it's like, right? Because your identity is largely shaped by your environment. And if your environment changes, like you don't have a choice. You don't even notice it, how you're a different thing. It would take literally like a self-reflecting type of practice. Like you would have to be beholden to a higher standard. You would have to have something that you hold bigger than you as your forefront. You'd have to be a practicing religious person or somehow some kind of spiritual practice to keep that at keeping you honest and kind of reflective, right? Because if you just sit there and if you allow for these thoughts to come in, there will be a small little voice that will come in from somewhere out that is like, aren't you being a little bit of freaking asshole who is detached from reality? It would sneak in. But these people just don't let any kind of opportunity for these thoughts to
well, they
to
can't
get in
because
there
everything
and
is already solved for
talk to
them
them.
by committee or whatever. So they don't even have to personally deal with any of these problems. So like they have no problem in their personal like there's almost no problem, almost. That means it's all the problem. Because you see, you're dealing with this environment of like a vacuum where you no longer have all the stimuli that really makes you make
No,
the
no,
right
I mean they
decisions.
still deal with problems. They're just a different caliber problems. They're of
Well,
different
yeah,
nature.
okay. So it's
But
more conceptual, right? It's no longer sort of, I don't know. This is why you would say some of these people are losing touch with reality, or they're off in the stratosphere or something, because they're not considering some of the more grounded issues anymore. So
well, this is where like I mean, for us, we can only speculate about this, right? Because here's the real test. We can criticize these billionaires for all you want, but what's gonna happen when you have billions of dollars? That's the real question and
but
test, right?
yeah, it is a real test, but I think part of it also is, well, do you want to be a conscientious person or not? Even though, yes, it means that if for you to do the right thing, yeah, you have to spend more money, right? On the workers, on whatever. So that means you're not going to make as much money in terms of on the balance sheet. But unless you want to just like pure profit and don't care about anything about all the people that work for you, then sure. If you want to maximize profit, that's just what they're doing. But imagine if, like you were saying, right? If we want,
Yeah, like what they say is that if you want to find out who the person is, give them power or money, something like that.
yeah,
Because essentially, right now we're talking about like, oh yeah, what about being a more conscientious person? Dude, what's gonna happen when you don't have to be?
that's the
If you
crux of the
have
problem.
the
Yeah,
money and you don't, because essentially it's another hassle, right? Like, oh, why do I have to consider this and that? I don't want to consider this and that. Throw some money on it, forget about it. It's, as based on the fact that every human nature wants to be lazy and conserve energy where they don't have to,
yeah,
that's just what naturally happens. So
yeah.
to stay conscientious, to be moral, to be some kind
Takes
of,
effort.
it takes effort. You would have to prioritize. Essentially, it takes wisdom. It takes wisdom that because a wise person knows that there's nothing that you can achieve with your grand even ideas and designs if you sacrifice things that are more important, such as just humanity, relationships with other people, just someone else's rights and well-being, etc., because they're aware of more spiritual
Yeah.
principles and they're aware of the connection between all of us, etc., 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 right? But that needs to be a lived experience and awareness of these things where you like, okay, I make sure that I don't forget that, which takes practice. And that's where the term spiritual practice comes from. It's because you have to be reminded of the stuff.
Because I see this, for example, with all the dictators in the world, basically. Like, they isolate themselves in such a way that, because look, the thing is with people is that you always have a social contract with other people. So imagine if you get to a position where, like, these dictators, where they are essentially cut off all relations with other people in the way of is only transactional. I'm forcing you to do what I want you to do, right? There's no more kind of negotiation or sort of like establishing, because the thing is, with a relationship, there is sacrifice, right? Any relationship, friendship, really, and romantic, whatever, you are sacrificing part of your kind of like how you are, right? Because if you want to be with another person in whatever way, you had to give up part of you, because it's like, well, I had to compromise, right? Because different people have different way of living. So meaning that in terms of on a definitional level, that relation means that you have to kind of work with that person, meaning you had to give up something. But these dictators, they're like, I want all the power. I want everything, right?
Hmm.
Meaning they forfeit the kind of relations because I'm not having any relation anymore. It's just more like,
Nobody will like them for that.
yeah, like exactly. So what they're doing is force their way in by power, money, or whatever else, right? So that transactional kind of power, a transactional kind of relationship. So like, there's no basis for it. This is why you see all these dictators in these different countries. They're all isolated. They're just like, they're just by design, almost by nature. There has to be that way because they don't trust anybody, and nobody really do anything for them because they are wanting to, right? So I keep thinking about it's like what about the is this really a kind of living situation that you want to be in? Yeah, because I can try to imagine, okay, if I were, I just say Vladimir Putin, do I want to be in that position? Like, no. For me, no. Like, I don't have that much. Like, I'm not interested in that kind of way
Yeah,
of
essentially,
life.
at
It's
the
just,
very least, people in such positions just inevitably they become targets
yeah,
because they inconvenience a lot of people.
a
Let's
lot.
just say it that.
Exactly. You're forcing everybody to do the way that you want
Yeah,
things
yeah,
are,
yeah.
right?
You're structuring the reality to benefit you at the cost of others, at least in some way, shape, or form. That is happening. That's part of the equation.
Yep. That's part of the deal, right?
Yeah,
And I see this very more clearly in the case of China. It's the same thing.
it's still
It's
that.
much more centralized power, and therefore, yeah, you're inconveniencing a lot of people. And now there's a lot of problem because there's more cost for you to maintain that, because with the fact that if the economy goes down, well, everybody can point the finger at who's really at fault because you're the one in control of everything. You can't just say, hey, it's not my problem. Well, no, it's all your problem because you the one saying, hey, I'm the one that has all the power. I dictate everything. Then yeah, if the economy is not going well, then that's your fault, right? So you will be pressured to perform, to do something, to do anything to kind of maintain your own power, and they're having a hard time. I'm sure because people are unsatisfied with how things are, and if you continue to kind of crack down on, eventually there's going to be a problem, right? So all that is to say, I don't know, people do different kind of things. And I just think that as far as just, it's really, you just have to think about what kind of life you want to live. It's not like, not all lives are equal, but not all life are really worth it too. Some of these, I don't see it being worth it, but I guess some people will see that as worth it. Now, why else are they doing it, right? They get a kick out of it or something. Now, why else would they chase that? But the other problem is that is as the saying goes, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupt absolutely. There's just no, yeah, exactly. I could not see any good person who wouldn't turn out to be like these people once they get to that position. There's no way they'll be able to maintain whatever original good ideas or good nature or good moral that they have, because that system only rewards being bad. There's no way that you can be good, right? That's just how power is. It's just how, because the higher you go, the more you take away power from other people, right? That's how the whole structure is. So you can be a good person when you're up there. So yes, I guess it makes sense why all these billionaires or whatever, why they turn to, it's essentially no morals, no empathy or whatever. Yeah, it makes sense, because that's what the environment kind of molds you to be. Yeah, there is no incentive for you to do anything. Like, you're right. Like, there is no, why should you be moral? That just takes more money, more effort, more thing to think about. Why? I can just do this and they will still comply, right? So this is why you cannot have nice things. So sometimes you do have to think about, okay, everybody has this kind of inner drive to be, oh, I want to get more resources, I want to be rich, I want to be this and that. But then you're going to think about, okay, well, what are you going to do with that? Right? Is that really worth not just your time and effort, but like, is that really, are you wanting to sacrifice everything? Movies keep telling us like, oh, this is bad. This is, you shouldn't be doing these. And sometimes it try to show you these, but I think sometimes people take the wrong message. It's like, it reminded me of that show they had from Netflix. It was like, it's like it's the not biopic. How do you call that? It's a dramatization of the life of Pablo Escobar, right? The guy who
No,
was selling on the drugs. In a way, it's kind of glamorizing that whole thing, but that's really just all of these people just see, okay, I can be rich, I can be rich doing
right.
this. I don't give a fuck about anybody else, right? Yeah, it's supposed to be a telltale sign, like a cautionary tale, but I don't know. A lot of people see that as, well, I want to be that guy, no matter what the cost, right? There are people like
Well,
that.
this is why I think, okay, it all comes back to me towards this, what are desires and which desires are worthy and are not worthy. Because I think it's like a case, every desire is like a case of you, having a magic lamp and to asking a genie for this, and genie interprets it with their own logic and gives you some nightmare. And I think that all desires are like that, essentially, because you never think them through. You don't know what it means, right? We've
Yeah,
talked about some of this before, like on the example on Fremen and Dune. Oh, you want green paradise. But what does that mean? And what does that include? It includes all these things, which do you want them? No, it's that. So, if anything, like one should just sit down on their butt and think very, very carefully about what they want and not move their finger to do anything else until they know exactly what it is, what will happen when they get it, and why they want all those other things.
but
And yes, it is a very extensive
it's a
process.
tall order
It
for
is a
lots
tall
of
order.
for people, because
But to me,
to
like, I'm
consider.
at that point. I'm at the point where, like, because otherwise, yeah, you would get this. You would get Pablo Escobar, who thought, oh, I'm gonna get all these things, and all these other people who thought, I just want this. But why do you want this? What do you think is gonna happen? What will it cost you? Who will you have to be to get that thing?
Plata or plomo. It's
Yeah. So it's just not in the nature of us to, like, yeah, to question these things too. But a lot of these things are impulses. Yeah, I can totally see how they are. I mean, this is why I'm like more interested these days in learning more about Carl Jung and what he uncovered about subconscious, because like he is saying that a lot of this stuff, what happens is that the archetypes that exist in subconscious, they play out in our conscious world, so to say, which is a fascinating concept. But there's something to it, because it's almost like there's some kind of stories that they're seeds of, and we get to play them out in real world. But then it does make this reality seem like some kind of a stage in a theater with all kinds of little scripts written by something underneath. But these archetypes, yeah, they, the stories of, pick any archetypical stories, right? The Joseph Campbell, his whole hero's journey. There's so many stories, archetypical stories, like, a lost son coming back to home, to something like reconcile with his father, stuff like that. That stories, they repeat themselves, that many people go through, and then there's some kind of reconciliation or achievement or learning or insight where like you understand things based on, because it happened to you. You understand the meaning of what is, combined with the fact that, we often don't understand the value of things until we lose them. It's that. So a lot of these stories, they're meant to almost like walk you through, for you yourself to come to a conclusion and understanding of what is meaningful and what is valuable. And it almost feels like the desires are the mechanism that are the levers that get pulled to walk you through these situations. That's like what it feels like to me these days, that everything is kind of like a lesson like that.
So I keep thinking about, just recall about some of these aspects about evolutionary biology. Like, how they explain the evolutionary process of eyes are just detecting the light difference from the sun,
Right.
right? And I keep thinking about, well, yeah, that's desires. What fundamentally are just reply to stimuli. It's a kind of, so it's a more complex aspect to that, but as simple as that, just like we detect the difference, and that is kind of like, because otherwise, how would you distinguish between an inanimate object to a biological thing, right? Biological things have directives. They have some kind of thing that directs them to. So that isn't that kind of translate as what the fundamental thing desire, what it fundamentally, kind of is. I mean, in a way, all these are facilitated by chemicals, hormones, and what have you. But somehow in our conscious mind, we're able to formulate maybe a definition of what that is, or we formulate words talking about what
Well,
we desire, what we want, what we.
what changed with the increase in complexity of our biology is just the range of experiences that we can have, because the functional turn, from just detecting, okay, food danger was the basics, right? It evolved to the fact that we now have a range of experiences from all these stimuli. We can have big ranges of pleasure from stimuli and big ranges of suffering and pain, which is now it complicates everything, because now what you could technically be doing is you could be the maximizing or optimizing the pleasure, because there's such a big spectrum of it, and that's the philosophy of hedonism, right? Because, well, there's also that you could just be doing that, and you could be a connoisseur of all kinds of pleasurable experience in life, of which there are many,
And
and you
some of
can
them are
be,
actually painful. It's, like the BDSM stuff, whatever, it's like that somehow can be deemed as pleasurable. So, like, the definition goes
well,
very,
that's where this concept. I remember Alan Watts talked a little bit about that part. He surprised me when he mentioned that, but he talked about the fact that throughout the history and some medieval practices and stuff, there's been people who have been tortured on purpose and like sometimes to death. But apparently, there is such a phenomenon that there is a point in torture where something happens to human mind where the the physical agony of torture somehow it flips and turns into complete ecstasy. It's like that, because the stimulus is just, it loses its meaning, and there's almost some kind of like, maybe like a spiritual liberation happens where, I don't know, the mind is gets detached from the stimulus, something. But it's literally happens where it's like, it's a documented phenomenon. And also Alan once mentioned that an an experienced torturer would notice that moment when it happens, and he would know that the torture is over.
yeah,
Like, there's no
there's
point
no
in
point.
continuing, because that person is no longer being tortured, right?
Yeah.
So what is that about? What the hell is that? What does that mean? And yeah, it plugs into, you mentioned BDSM, like there's got to be something about that. Because either some kind of wires have been crossed somewhere, where the stimulus of flipping or they're intermixing, or there's some kind of almost like appreciation of the range of experience happens. That's the way I understand it. To me, it's kind of like a form of enlightenment in a sense, because you are able to enjoy anything. That would be the ultimate type of enlightenment, where nothing can hurt you, essentially, right?
Right. Yeah. It's
So you could even do that. I mean,
because this made me think about the fact that part of the reason why people don't seem to do what's good for them is almost like we're chasing these extremes, right? It's almost like we know what's good for us, but the good thing for us is boring. It's like
right.
it's
Yeah,
too
yeah,
stable. It's too,
yeah.
that's why we flip out sometimes, right? It's like this.
Yeah. That's what I struggle with, is that it's like, yeah, I'm going to do all these healthy habits. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to work out. I need to meditate. But things get boring, dude, because especially as I know, there's something about this predictability of a routine that bothers me. That, like, when I detect it's like I'm in a pattern for too long, just automatically something seeks to disrupt it. But yeah, what is that about? That means
Yeah, we
that there is
need
some
stimuli.
kind of
It's
component that I think that's part of play, actually. That is the real
yeah,
play. Because the
okay, yeah,
play
yeah,
is dealing with unpredictable situations and spontaneity, right?
yeah, yeah.
The
Well,
spontaneity
this
is the
is
real.
why Path of Exile is so kind of hooking us up on. It's just this. It is unpredictable. You don't know what will happen, right? It's like these things might drop. I might get a good gear. I might not. I might get
But
this and that. But
the problem is that eventually you do get used to. Eventually you will
you
know the
will,
whole thing,
yes. It's
and it
just
will
that
become old. Like
it
eventually
will.
we'll stop
Like
playing that shit. You know
everything,
that, right?
everything can get old. Okay,
Yeah.
that's how it works, right? But
But
it's it.
that's what, to me, that's what made Buddhism such an attractive philosophy, because it already sees through that. It sees, but if all the games will end, what's the point of playing them?
Kingdom. That's it, right? It's just the experience of it, right? So it's just like there's no goals in life worthy, only what you deem worthy. Because yeah, you can be doing anything in life and it's all meaningless, right? As far as how I understand it, is like yeah, I'm definitely thinking that everything is absurd. There is no say fundamental or like how would you even there's no point in it where anybody can dictate this is it, this is what it is, this is the only reason why you will do anything. It's just how you feel about it, how you want this to make you feel, or how you want it to be a thing, right? Because like you can define anything, but you do need to define something. Just like what they say, hey, if you don't know what to do with your life, do something. Right? It doesn't matter what, do something and then see how it goes, right? And not just like, because the thing is, choices really paralyze you. You don't want to live in a situation where you're like way too much choices and you can't choose, and that's the worst thing, right? You're just gonna procrastinate and delay, and it's just choose a thing, see how it goes. So I just think that yeah, it's about the life experience. Like you choose what you want to experience in life, and that's the only thing that you can do, right? I mean, yeah, we all want good things to happen to us, but the other thing is you also need challenges because, again, case in point of, there's a phenomenon of retirees pass away not long after they retire because they just bored out of their mind and somehow they just like,
They got nothing to do.
yeah, you need sustained challenges. You can't just like
You
not
need to be a
do
part of
anything.
some kind of process or society or relationship where you are actually needed, where you by default have a purpose because
Yeah.
there is a reason you are there. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that even on my own experiences, just the fact that not really, like, I'm pretty good at keeping myself busy and occupied. Like, I'm never really bored, it's all temporary. But this is what I'm still trying to reconcile. Yeah, that because Buddhism like deals with that specifically by acknowledging that the impermanent nature of everything. And then there is something bothersome for me that everything gets old eventually, and that you essentially cycle through all these ways to keep yourself busy or, pleasurable, watch this and that. There's something bothersome about that fact. I don't, I'm still looking to reconcile it in some way or form, but
But isn't
the,
that? Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
the alternative would be that you somehow, find, essentially hook your attention on itself and just prioritize something like meditation, which is staying in the same state of mind, paying attention to the same thing forever. That's the solution.
Right.
In that sense,
But
it's final.
but that's the fundamental problem that Buddhism is dealing with, is the fact that we have all these desires, we have all these kind of flippant nature of like, oh, I want this, I want that, and then like being bored, want
Yeah,
new things.
it's
I
just a
guess
cycle
its a solution that it proposes that if you meditate to a certain
to
degree,
solve this bigger
you
cycle.
will
Yeah.
become eternal in a way where you basically don't reborn. You basically know nothing of this kind of
Well,
desires anymore, and
even without the reborn, it's like this is the part where, like, yeah, you don't have to go there into the metaphysics. Essentially, you solve the problem of the cycle of
wanting.
having the desire, of being bored, of being dissatisfied, of looking for something else, having that illusion for a split second, and oh, it's pleasurable, but then it's gone, and it's gone, and it's gone. It's you seize that cycle of being kind of disappointed, and because you ultimately, from every desire, what you're looking for is the satisfaction, but
Right.
satisfaction never
Never
lasts.
last.
And I like
And
that part
and the
in
satisfaction
principle.
is really part of the anticipation. That was a part of it, right? Like I think
Yeah,
scientifically they start finding out the fact that,
it's elusive.
yeah, it's not the fact that you got it. So when the moment you got it is gone, right? So it's the fact that you didn't get it, but you anticipate that. So it's illusion, right? The illusion in your head thinking, oh, I'm gonna get this thing, right? That's what give off the dopamine and make you feel that way, make you feel good when. So it's not really the result. The result can be anything, but it's just, you know, right. So it's that expectation, right? It's the what you expect and then what the result is. So right. So they're doing is just essentially eliminate that whole cycle so that you don't go through that. Which I guess, practically speaking, you could get that kind of mental state if you meditate enough, where you basically
I
don't
mean,
desire anything. Like it's more like, okay,
I've
you
glimpsed into that, but I can't say I've ever approached a state where the desires don't arise. This is where it's contentious points, but it depends maybe of how much and how well you meditate. But I think if you live in a, like, you can't be a hermit that lives in a cave and meditates anymore. So for that reason alone, you still have to find, like, I I can't figure it out. I can't figure out a way of being that desireless person and live in modern world. I don't see how that's possible, because to have any type of job, like especially corporate job, it's so much ego based, which it's constantly reconciling mostly not your desires, but everybody else's desires, that it becomes a huge headache. That to stay in that meditative state, it's a skill that I've never been able to approach, because it sounds in principle great. I would be able to just essentially, you hook your mind on that, it stays in that stable, peaceful state, and then somehow your body just, I guess, does some bare minimum to just do the necessary functioning around the situations that you're in. But in reality, it doesn't work that way for me. You're still like this completely self-involved human being who has their own desires and
because
hormones and
yeah,
everything that are
because
driving behavior.
it feels almost the antithesis of being what a human is, right?
Right,
It's like
right.
it's essentially trying to be, I'm gonna be a robot. I'm gonna be like, I'm just performing the task without being
Almost like
getting
people say that it's supposed to deepen your compassion, but I have not found it to be the case in me.
too
Not really.
detached, right?
It does make you more equanimous, but equanimous to me is not compassionate. It's further from compassion.
If this concern, it's
Be-
basically you don't care, right? It's like
yeah, because it
doesn't
puts you
affect me.
further away from all this mundane human concern, which is in itself is its own ego kind of gets developed. I think like there's a term like spiritual ego, but how do you detect that? How do you avoid that? That's the paradox. That it does make you more peaceful and more evened out and more concentrated, and you're like not vacillating your moods as much as stuff like that. But it's difficult to maintain that, difficult to live with that in the real world, because like it's even clashes, because anytime I would bring that up or discuss that with other people in the world, to them it's alien. They're like, you're crazy. Like, you're just because you're meditating and you're trying to spend time and effort on that versus like going out and partying, they think you're a crazy person. So that doesn't even jive on that level. So it's almost like you'd have to be a monk. You have to live in a society and in a community where that way of life is supported,
Yeah.
and everything else is gonna be, I don't know, a very, very limited attempt at that type of mind and consciousness. But I do see how there's a different modes of kind of how your mind can be. I can see that there's you can live your life in all these different modes, really. And the fact that you can do something like meditation, or you can essentially everything like is an altered state of mind. You can do meditation, or you can go and get blackout drunk, and those will be two completely different modes of life. Like, because I've been both.
Yeah.
I've been a
You have
heavily meditated
experience. Yeah.
person, and I've been heavily drunk person, where like you wouldn't even recognize. If it's a fun version of me, but it's chaotic as hell, dude. It's
Yeah.
like, it's dangerous. You should not be doing that.
Damn.
So I've seen both, and like the question is, what is better? What is good, right? And this is where it's fun. Like, this is why I kind of want to keep exploring these topics of what's good, what's interesting, where attention goes, what do you consider good versus bad, because you'd find people who are saying that this is good, and you find people who are saying that that is
I
good.
mean, to risk sounding cliche, only fists deal with absolute. It's
Mm.
it's kind of true, because there are always going to be not just situations in which some apply and some don't, but also I think in life, maybe one's approach should be just, we'll see, you know? Maybe this is a way of describing the world. Buddhism, the way they describe things, is one way, is one solution. But ultimately, I mean, you gotta have to play with it, right? It's like you gotta have to, yeah, it's like a game. Yeah, like you gotta play around with it, see what's the result would be for you personally, right? What's your build? What's your, thing, as opposed to what somebody else tell you, oh, you gotta build it this way to maximize blah blah blah, whatever. Sure, but that's not your experience, right? You play the game to enjoy it yourself, to kind of experience it yourself. So I think that
To me, the biggest problem with this game playing thing, where you see like you're playing games, the big problem is the finality of time and life.
yeah,
Because to me, essentially out of that finality comes all the meaning. Because like, if I was immortal,
I'd be
I'd for sure
bored
be
as
behaving differently though. But
bored
I
as
would be
hell.
I would be trying on stuff, I would be picking up projects which will take forever, and it would be a completely different decision-making
Yeah,
process.
yeah,
There you could try whatever you want and not think about what it is.
yeah.
If you feel like, oh, I like this game, I'm gonna play it, you could zone out and play Path of Exile for
Thousands of
100
years.
years and
Yeah,
thousands of years. And eventually might get old, but it would still be a long time.
yeah.
Here, the situation is different. You do know that within a few dozen years, you will not be. So, what does that mean for your choices and for how you choose to spend your time? Does it change anything when you keep that perspective in mind?
Well,
Should you be doing something other before your time is up? Should you not be doing, like, does it matter?
I mean, it changes everything, right? It's like
Right.
as a person who's as everybody.
But what does it
When you were
change exactly?
born, you feel the world is yours. When you were really, really young, you don't understand anything. You're trying, oh wow, this is
Yeah.
wonderful, this is
Yeah.
great. And then the moment you have your first existential crisis, you're like, holy shit, oh no, this is not good. No, I don't want that.
That's a problem.
But then the rest of your life, you're just trying to reconcile with the fact, right? But yeah, that changes everything. The moment you have your first existential crisis, you realize, oh, I do have to define things. I don't have all the time in the world for me to enjoy all of this or whatever it is the life experience is. I have to make the mark. So sometimes people are pressured, right, to do something. Oh, I must achieve this, I must achieve that. But ultimately, I think that if you are experiencing enough, and also when you kind of understand enough about life, is sometimes the fundamental reality is that, well, you don't have to do anything. It's like, well, I mean, you can do whatever. This is like, that's part of the problem because nobody really said, oh, you got to do this, man. I mean, that's your opinion, man, right? I mean, everybody has an opinion about what they think life is worth. This is why there's so many different lifestyles. There are different people doing different things because they think this is worth it or whatever, right? I mean, they might be wrong or they might be right because everybody making bets, right? They're making bets that this is going to work, this is going to be better.
And like for a long time, I mean, I think before Industrial Revolution, so much of what was even acceptable was dictated by society at large, right?
yeah,
By the culture, where it wasn't like whatever you want to do.
no,
It's
yeah,
like
exactly.
you're
Yeah, yeah.
born in this
Into
class, in
this,
this
and this is
family,
what it is.
and if you're a woman, your job is to continue this, and if you're a man, your job is to like take over your father's thing. And it was just a way of life, and it's definitely not that way like
Right.
anymore.
So it's just
Like,
more modern time that we
yeah,
are
these
more
days
free, where you
it is to the point. So if anything, like what I'm experiencing is a symptom of that, is that it's
right,
so much freedom that
so
like,
much
okay,
freedom. Yeah,
what do you do though?
yeah.
What do you do with the freedom? Okay, you can do anything. Yes. So technically, yeah, we've more free than we've ever been in the history of this planet. But with it, for some people, like
It's a curse. It's a curse of
the
like,
question
I
comes
had to
up, like,
figure it out.
but how do you answer that question? With the question itself is you dig deeper into it, it doesn't have, there's no limit to the freedom, which is in itself an existential crisis, essentially, because
Crisis of meaning.
where do you land on? What do you land on? What is your purchase, right? What
It,
do you
this
define
this was
as good?
why ancient people, or let's just say, people who were part of the old religion, they were afraid of any other question, right? They're like, don't do that. Don't go there, right?
Heresy.
Just shut up and praise Jesus. That's it.
Yes.
Because they're afraid of the answer. Because this is what happened. This is what Nietzsche was afraid of when he wrote, God is dead. Because at that time frame of that time in Europe, yeah, people start having different other thoughts about life. About so Jesus wasn't the only way, right? God isn't the only way. They start thinking other things. So they're like, but so people at the time were afraid, oh, what if religion go away? Then it's pandemonium because people don't have belief anymore and they're going to do whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's what they were afraid. And in a way, they were right. Because after that, it's all kinds of shenanigans, all kinds of belief and ideas and that clashes and people die for it. And, whatever happened to modern day now, it's like, yeah, we are at this time where like spiritually we're bankrupt. There's nothing for us to think about that's like, because we keep questioning everything too, right? It's like, oh yeah, what do you mean to believe in Jesus? What if that's not the case? And then you start questioning, you have different ideas. And so now we have a crisis of meaning because meaning was prescribed before and nobody had to think about it. So, yep, we were born into the society. This is what the society believes and this is what we believe. And that's it. There's a stability in that. But now after you open up the wormhole, I just say, right, of you are actually free. You are actually fundamentally like philosophically free. This is what the existentialists were saying.
A freedom of
You
thought.
it's like basically, you dictate what you believe, right? They don't believe that there is an ordained thing. It's just like, yeah, you basically pick up whatever, you know? So in that way it's freeing. But the terrifying thought of it is that, well, now you got to choose. There's nobody else can tell you what that is anymore. So that's the problem where you don't know. and you're making guesses. Everybody's making guesses of what they think they should believe, or what they think their life should be, or how they, So, and then for a lot of people, that's very scary, and it is scary. And this is why in modern day, I would say that a lot of people are not fitting in very well, because not just the
Mm,
social pressure, the work environment, and what have you, but it's also this kind of lack of belief, let's just say. Like there's no environment by which it fosters it. There's too much freedom, right? The idea that you can believe anything you like, right? Sure, you still have communities of religious groups that still believe in the old way and what have you, but you just have as many people who don't believe or have
right.
different beliefs. So who do you go for? I mean, now we have even more what they call intersectionality. I hate that word, but it's basically different modes of life, right? People have different
Yeah,
choices
just
they
different
make
aspects that
to be
define your
different kind of being,
reality.
essentially, what they want to be physically, or, altering that, and what have you. Okay, we're accepting that now in society, in most society, open society. Then the question is still like, okay, well, if you can do all of that, then who to say, just that's the problem, because nobody can say. And we're having this issue now because nobody can define it, and therefore we have a lack of definition. Now is this full blown postmodern syndrome of just, yeah, anything you define is valid. I mean, not really, but this is where we are. So we have a meaning of crisis. This is like who to decide what. I mean, yeah, we can say, I could say in my personal case, oh, I think everything is absurd, and it's really about how you define it. Well, okay, but how do I define it? I don't know. It's like I can I can say like, oh, I think the directive is for you to decide, and that's kind of good in a way, but then it's really ultimately it's still up to you. And
It's still up to you, but is it really that essentially? I think everything is just so unique and situational for every single human that it does come down to, okay, you're making the decision, but in terms of how you're making it, the reason that you're going to come up is still arbitrary, essentially. It still is not based on anything. You could base it on, I
on
don't know, you
something,
could
it's based on
study,
something, but
it's still based on something, but that something, how that is chosen in itself, that is still a mystery, right? It's like the fact like of how you decide and come up with anything, right? It's that it still goes back to the fact that you don't know how you're making the decisions, how you pick on things, and how you choose anything.
because the
Mm,
scary thing for me, at least how I comprehend it, is like, well, any of these choices that you make or whatever, this is just how I conceive it. Okay. And the scary part of it is like, is that it doesn't matter. That's the scary part. It's like, whatever you do, you can be doing all kinds of crazy stuff. It doesn't matter,
man,
because
that's like
not,
nihilism.
but to me, it's true though, because it, it doesn't matter in a way that, like, in that kind of grand kind of view, right? Like, sure, what you do affect other people, and you should consider the ramification of your actions, all that. But beyond that, right? What you consider is right. It's just you decided that way, and that's about it. Nobody can say I either way, and ultimately, the universe doesn't care what you do with yourself, right? You are given this thing, and nobody can dictate how, and you can do whatever. It's just, it's just like there are stars out there that lives and dies. It's just the nature of things. And does anybody know that that's happening? I mean, if you can observe it, sure, but they could be just as happening, happens without your consent, without your knowledge. All these things are out there. So whatever you do, you're doing it. You know it. Because you're doing it. But really, even if either you see it or you don't see it, does it matter? I mean, only if you believe that if I'm doing something that ultimately affects the universe in some way, right? But if we just go along with the material sort of sense, like you just go away when you die, okay, then there's nothing. It's really, unless you believe that, oh, the soul transform, then sure, right? But again, that's just one way of theorizing, or one way to tell the story. But there's no is there any way to kind of make this concrete and be like, yep, that's how it is, that's how it works, and therefore we all should be doing that? There's nothing like that, right? So that's why people do
Yeah,
all these different things.
it's one thing if it was like a person comes to you, is like, okay, if you go to the gym
And do this, and then you get
in
the
12
results.
months, you're gonna have this much more muscle, this
Right.
much less fat, you're gonna look better. You can now cross-reference this to existing data. It's like, oh
Yep.
yeah, people
Okay.
have
I
done
see.
this.
This is
This
true.
is a thing. And then you do go to the gym and you do a before and after photo. Yes. Nothing like this, like that exists for anything spiritual or even, I mean, maybe for philosophical stuff there is in terms of like how you live your life, but it's so nebulous and abstract, and you are so unique in what you are and how you are that there is no study or data that will guarantee you anything for anything,
Well, you see,
especially with any metaphysical claims.
yeah. And the only thing that most people still kind of judge a person is really how much effect they have on other people, right? I mean, we still talk about Adolf Hitler because of how much things he affected many things, okay, in terms of people, right, living on this earth. And same with any historical figure. They're only judged by their actions of what that affected, how that affected other people. But as far as the earth is concerned, something happened, okay? There's just something happening on this earth.
These bugs have been killing each other on
Yeah,
this
that's
planet.
it. That's they're doing their thing, but this is the ecosystem, right? That's just how things are. Just that there are so many ants doing their thing, and they're living and dying and continuing, and that's just a cycle. It is what it is, right? So it doesn't matter what that ant is thinking. I just say, okay, ants can think, and they think all kind of like they're just like us. They can think all kind of what their meaning of life.
You never know. It's like there's this one a really funny scene from from Rick and Morty, where Morty was like Rick gave him a helmet to read thoughts, and he came outside and there was like two squirrels in a tree with the British accent discussing like, okay, did you turn, like, we got to do this overturn of power in Guatemala? Yes. When on which schedule? We got to send. They're like doing a conspiracy theory, like they're pulling the strings on all the events in the world, and they're like noticing that they can hear him, and they're like they go after him. That was hilarious, dude, because it was essentially something like that could be happening, and you would never know.
It's true. But again, that's a hypothesis, right? Or it's a theory, it's an idea, it's a story. It still end up being, do you believe in it or not, right? So fundamentally, it's the.
But that's the thing. Like the reality can be something other than what you believe in it, right? There is such a thing as lies, as obfuscation, as misrepresentation. That's the whole game of real power. That's what real power is doing in this world right now.
Yeah, it's
only making sure nobody knows they're the power, and they're exerting all the power.
It's affecting your life. It's affecting everything that you are living, because you are part of a human society, and that affects you.
But my motivation is ultimately because of that, because I think that I'm being bamboozled on such an ultimate level that something is fucky around here, and if I don't do my best at figuring it out, I'm gonna spend this life in vain. That's my problem. I'm that paranoid.
You're that paranoid? I'm that nihilistic. I'm like, it's pointless anyway. I mean, it's been bamboozling.
See, but who of us is right? See, if I'm right, then you are committing a biggest mistake that could be done because you're complacent. But if you're right, then I'm committing the biggest mistake because I'm wasting my time.
So who's wasting time now?
This is why this is important, you know?
Yeah, who's wasting time here? Okay, answer me this question, right? Who's wasting their time? Who's the biggest idiot?
Are you wasting my time?
Who's the biggest idiot in the room?
But I think that's what it comes down to. And but even then, what is the ultimate question? What is it to waste time? Is there such thing at all? Like, or is all of it?
That's a good question. What's defined as wasting time, right? Like, is anything you're doing, is it worth the time that you spend, or is it like, you're wasting? But then if you say you're wasting, then what else is not wasting, right?
That's the thing. It still goes according to some kind of dichotomy, right? And maybe that like is the kind of the evil against which non-duality is supposed to be the panacea, right? Because I've encountered that in some of the teachings and the even satsangs that I watched, is that essentially it's that. It's the moment the mind tries to split between anything and anything, that is essentially a waste of time. I've even heard like that is the cause of all evil. Because any moment you sit down and it's like, all right, that's how it starts, right? Because like, okay, we're gonna segregate good from bad, which means these people are bad. Let's eliminate them. That's how evil
Right.
starts in
So
the
it's
world, right?
black and
Because
white thinking.
you start to separate things, you start to dissect things, but then the opposite of that seems to be so paradoxical, where then anything goes,
Yeah.
which means it adopts this some kind of more cosmic perspective of where all of the existence is some kind of a play of some kind of mind where anything goes. Because, say, if that was the case, then yeah, awareness of this perspective would kind of lead you ultimately to peace, that it's all fine. Because, and there are literally such perspectives. There are even, I mean, that's from what I understand, that's where the whole concept of yoga came from, because they recognize as this reality is this one big play of energy, essentially. And
Mm.
the
Right.
source of that energy is just divine. Whatever it is, it's what makes everything, which means whatever it's made is holy and divine and perfect and great. It's just from your limited human capacity, who splits the world based on their own little experiences and biology, which is so extremely limited, right? It's very, very specific. But if you were a different type of being, if you were a cosmic being, if you were like a size of a planet with the perception capable of seeing throughout the whole of the world with all the dimensions, that would be a completely different life and perspective. So part of the curse is the limitation of your little human mind, which is
Yeah.
just struggling with
You
this
can't
infinity,
comprehend it.
essentially.
Yeah.
Essentially, we're is faced with infinity, and we're like, what is what, and we're short circuiting.
Yeah. It's too complex for the mind to construct the complete understanding, because it's like there's not enough RAM, right? It's like what
Right.
they happen with the Moore's law. It's like, yeah, it's not, the computation is not, you need new technology to make it perceive more than what you're already perceiving, right? It's kind of hitting that physical limit of what you naturally would be able to observe and to understand and to
So,
comprehend.
yeah, with that in mind, it's like we have to create some kind of even an artificial limit from which we can think anything else, right? But the tricky part is that we do have to think. We can't not think.
Yeah. What distinguishes us from animals is just we're
Yeah,
thinking, right? We have this
yeah,
process by which we can have abstract thinking. You can plan, you can basically see the future. Like you're able to see and into the future essentially and plan and schedule and then execute. That's the only difference, really,
yeah.
right? Animals are just, they
Like
just do their thing. They don't schedule. It's
like these days, I'm contemplating, moving to a different city, etc. So I'm imagining what
scenario.
my life will be like. So I'm imagining all the things that will change, and so because you can imagine, you can think about it,
Right.
and it was that, and then I imagine the fact that I won't be able to like be around my cat and be playing with him. And I'm like, that would suck. But it's only possible because you're able to project it and to imagine what it's like and to consider what things mean to you and why you do them, etc., etc., etc. That's thinking. I mean, thinking is very tightly connected with imagination. But to me, it's much more conceptual for the most part. To me,
Yeah.
imagination
Abstract.
is slightly different, where you more directly deal with imagery. But thinking is much more abstract, where it's much more logical for me. And this is another part. It's different for everybody. There are different types of thinking. Like there are people who are like without internal monologue, apparently.
Yeah.
There are people who can't visualize stuff. They have aphantasia. That's wild. That means that there is, even in thinking of about life and reality, you're going to have different results and different modes of thinking about it based on the person's capacity and capability,
Yeah.
which goes further to confirm what we've kind of established in our last couple of episodes, that reality is subjective and there is no going around that, because no matter, like, there's still a somebody who is evaluating it and interpreting it at the end of the day according to their unique configuration of faculties.
Which is what they prove in physics, right? The locality of the actual realities. There's a reference point by which things can be observed. So it's not like universal in that way. So everything is local because time and space is in that same, it changes where you are, right? What you observe, what you see, it's all localized in that way. So it's like the fundamental reality is part of it is like every single part of that space and time, it make a huge difference if you travel from here to there, right? There are differences that's gonna be accounted by where you are, either you're observing or you're actually moving in that space, right? So, but I did hear there's this theory, I guess. There was two physicists who, famous ones there, they deal with quantum mechanics, and they came up with this kind of recent theory. And there's a lot of video talking about it. It's an interesting thing where, because there's always this physics problem of like quantum mechanic and classical physics doesn't miss a match. And they came up with a theory that essentially using a kind of shorthand equation, ER equals EPR. So what these represent is ER is Einstein-Rosen bridge. So the idea is like this theory about wormholes, that there can be, it basically established the idea that there can exist wormholes where two locations, by the fact that the space is warped, you can have a kind of a tunnel thing, theoretically speaking. So you can essentially go beyond time travel in the way that you can go faster than light by not physically
Right.
traveling, but by basically taking a shortcut. So that's the
Yeah.
theory.
Through space.
And then EPR is a paper that was written co-authored by Einstein and then two other guys. That's their name. EPR is Einstein. I forgot the name's a Russian guy, and then there's another guy, and using their name. But what they're saying was that this was written in the 1935 or something. It was basically Einstein's way of debating the quantum mechanics people, that it's saying that this that famous, it's trying to use the formulas and math to kind of showcase that there is this thing called the entanglement, right? So it's Einstein himself said, oh, this is like the spooky action at a distance, right? So what the fundamental thing this paper say is that there must be something unaccounted for these two particles to have
Right.
to be able to entangle. There's
Yeah.
no way that it will violate this locality clause, that you
Yeah.
can
So
have
something is
vast
connecting
different
them.
distance and still be able to entangle instantaneously. No way. Nothing is transmitted, right? So it poses this question to them, but actually what end up happening is these quantum mechanic people actually found that it's true. Like they do entangle from a distance. So this is the forever question nobody can answer, because it's like Einstein slapping himself, almost like he's saying this to prove that there's no way that these two, like, imagine if two things gonna entangle from a long distance. How the hell do they explain that?
But
But
you're,
then they actually went up and did experiments like, yeah,
yeah.
actually it does. So what this ER equals EPR is saying is that, what if the fundamental reality is that the quantum mechanic aspect of the particle world have this kind of entanglement nature, like a wormhole to other particles, so they can entangle in that way. So they're not traveling, sending information over long distances. They're just traveling through the wormhole, so like a shortcut. So this is much closer to the Buddhist, or at least the, you can say, Hindu idea, that, like the story about how in the Hindu kind of cosmology, they're saying in consciousness are just jewels on this web
Indra's
of
net. Yeah.
yeah, Indra's net. So this idea is just essentially saying maybe quantum mechanics is that the particles are like those Indra's net, right? These consciousness arise, not, it's basically from the fundamental aspect of these particles that they are able to entangle, like, the 0 and 1. It's like computation, right? 0 and 1. They're able to connect in this way.
Yeah. There's some kind of inherent connection. It's just that we're not able to see or measure it or detect it.
So this is what it's saying. So this theory is saying ER equals EPR, meaning what their proposes maybe they can be done, this kind of, so basically this is the thing that connects the classical physics and the quantum mechanics, meaning that they're just basically a wormhole between them, and they're not violating the actual physics for able to kind of have that entanglement, and yet still being fundamental reality to everything. So this is the theory to connect all of it. But again, it's not proven, right? But the idea is almost like this is closer to the Buddhist Hindu thought of like, okay, maybe consciousness is just fundamental part of reality. And that idea that maybe everything is arising from these particle interactions, and that is what arise all these reality, essentially, right? By the different configurations.
Well, yeah, that would kind of go back into that whole discussion about reality is a dream, which if you do continue with that line of thought, I do think that's where you essentially arrive at. It's a matter of what you're considering, because I mean, literally, there are texts and traditions and philosophers and thinkers who present and think of reality as God's dream. Because like, who's to say how it works, right? If a mind dreamed this into existence, essentially they imagined it. All it would say, like on the surface, is that it's so powerful to imagine all of these details and to have them stable enough like this at this point. But what would be the proof of that, and to whom, and
Yeah.
who would be proven what to whom?
How do you prove it?
Are the characters that you imagine in your dreams, do you prove to them that they're in a dream? That actually, I think that is a known thing that people did attempt in lucid dreaming. And I think the common thing that happens is that if you try to do that in a lucid dream and you try to tell the characters that they're in a dream, I think universally they get hostile. Because that inherently destabilizes the fabric of the dream. And I think maybe this reality has the same principle and law, and maybe that's why you don't hear nothing about that. That type of knowledge or discourse doesn't progress beyond a certain point because it's not allowed. But if it was like that, and this was imagined by some kind of all-powerful mind, there's nothing for anybody to do anything about it.
It's like the Matrix, right? I mean,
no, it's not, because Matrix is controlled by the machines. Here,
but then who's stopping you from actually like not allowing it for what? You're gonna discover that there's something you're gonna wake up? Is it?
Well, that's the thing. Like, what are you gonna do about it? If you are an imagined character in someone else's dream, what are you gonna do about anything? Because the only thing that you can do is you're gonna stop being dreamt. That's it.
Yeah. Because do differently, right? Do things differently.
What else can happen? What can happen to the characters in your dream? What is their only fate is to either be a part of your dream or to not be.
Yeah. So if those characters are only exist in me, they only exist
as your dream.
They only exist as a wet dream, okay?
Yeah.
So are they gonna wake up like, nah, I'm not gonna play this sexual game anymore. I'm not gonna be this kind of. Is that what they're gonna do?
How are they gonna do that if they are your imagination?
Yeah.
If you make them.
So they're gonna break away from it. It's like, no, you're supposed to be this.
But they don't have a nature. They don't have an existence outside of your imagination. Your imagination is what makes them.
So how would they wake up?
They can't.
Yeah.
They don't have
the capacity to do it.
They don't have a separate existence.
So what you're saying is, what if that character becomes self-conscious, that becomes separated out to your...
I think they can't. Because what does that mean? You'd have to imagine it. You see what I mean? There's no other way that it could happen besides you imagining it.
Yeah, it's not a separate entity somehow.
Yeah, they don't exist.
Yeah. Unless you make it happen. Like, okay, I'm actively meta, in a meta way, like imagining the character breaking away from my consciousness. Like, that's the only way, right?
Which is a fun idea for creative work, but then that's the paradox, is that
but then you're saying,
whatever they do, it's you essentially playing out this little fantasy.
So meaning that you can't really escape. I mean, if you say that this reality is a dream, then you as that character cannot escape it then. because this is God's dream.
Yeah,
This God can
essentially, the only thing it means is that there is only the dream.
right.
There's no you, there's no character. It's
Okay.
just the scenario that's playing out in some kind of space.
That's trippy.
That's
That's trippy to think about. Yeah.
I mean, it's trippy to think about specifically because we have access to something like that. We have access to dreams. We have access to imagination. I kind of wanted to try out a bit of active imagination that Carl Jung, you know, pioneered, because there you can take something like imagery from dreams and you can kind of like give it space and time to come alive and interact with it, which sounds very trippy, but it's kind of like a technique that you can do. I'm almost like kind of scared of trying it because it sounds very strange if you think about it, but it sounds very interesting because everybody has imagination, and essentially it's a way to kind of communicate with your subconscious, from what you understand.
But there are ways to break your brain, though. I mean, if you think something too hard enough, like it probably. I mean, I'm thinking about all these crazy people. Like they must
Yeah.
have broke their brain somehow. There's something about.
Well, yes, that's where it's like everything is a double-edged sword, and if you keep, I see, like I think you find what you seek, and if you keep thinking deeper on anything, on the nature of all these things, you may find something, but that may be something so strange and so irreconcilable that it will cause your limited human mind to
Break.
not be able to deal with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it will like splinter or something, it will have to compartmentalize stuff, and it will be
Yeah.
detrimental to your
It's
whole
true
personality.
because some of these split personality are kind of they're defined as a way to protect the psyche essentially, right? They can't handle it, therefore they break away into these different personality to kind of protect themselves from having to comprehend whatever. This is part of that whole, cosmic horror almost, right? The idea that there's something incomprehensible out there that you cannot comprehend that will make you mad, driven mad because if you try to comprehend it. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it seems like that's what happens sometimes to people. Like if they, like maybe some kind of trauma really broke them somehow, right? And they just split. They just like to protect themselves psychologically. They just, and that's of course it's not without. It's like they didn't want that to happen, but that just, happened because of circumstance. But
Yeah,
that's the scary
that's
part.
the other part. That's the scary part of the unknown, is that
You don't control anything.
you
There's
don't
no.
you don't know what can be, what can happen. So I understand like the safety and stability of the known world, no matter what it is. Don't rock the boat, because at least we're still here and we can do all the things that we can do,
It's
and
that
that can
edge
go
of.
away really fast.
Yeah, it's like between, adventurism versus, stability, essentially,
Right.
right? Humans are trying to find out. You're curious enough to travel the seven seas, discover new lands, but then, a lot of people die too because things happen, right? So it's like how much is too risky versus how much is too safe, you know? It's just this kind of like that's the thing. Human actions are messy. It's just like we do all these silly things, really, if you think about it. But I don't think there's any way, you can't do it any other way, right? It can all this be otherwise? Well, why would it happen in this way if it wasn't for some reason that's just how it comes to be, right? It's almost like, if you try to lie, you have to build it up. You have to kind of build that facade, right? So most people they because that takes energy. So meaning that yes, there are a lot of illusions out in this world, all the lies and scams and whatever, but most people will still want to live in reality of some kind of truth, right? It's like they don't think about like if they're trying to lie, they have to actively lie to other people. There's not like they lie by default, right?
Right.
I
Right.
mean that would be a problem if you lie to yourself, right? I mean, but sometimes I guess you do by just trying to make yourself psych up into thinking of something is true while it's not. I mean, yeah, that can happen. That can happen, but But I think most people would value truth, would value what naturally happens. So there are reasons for why all of these things would happen the way they do. There gotta be, not just that there has to be a reason, but there's like it happens because that's how it is. I mean, even the lies and scams can be explained away, right? They try
Oh
to
yeah.
get a goal, they try to do something by doing such and such. So yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, reality is just you can't define it. You can't. I mean, how do you define reality? I mean, we call it reality, but it's such a big, ambiguous term for everything.
Yes, but I do largely conflate that term with just your experience. Essentially your whole world, right? So
Right.
everything that you experience, and yeah, even then that there are different kind of sizes of reality. But your personal reality is essentially what you experience. If your reality is, going to work every day and that's your life, that's your reality because you're not really aware or exposed to everything else, which is as far as you're concerned, the actual overall available reality is infinite because you can have all these billions of lives, and they're all unique. They're all specific. They deal with this environment, they deal with this situation, they deal with these people, different cultures. Like right now, there are kids playing soccer in Brazil, and that's their reality. And it has nothing to do with your reality. But it exists, and it's technically there, and you can go and you can see it, but it has nothing to do with you. You have no access to it. You don't know what's involved. You just have the concept of it. And but to me, it's mostly your experience. Like, what do you want your reality to be? Meaning, what do you want to experience? And I do want to circle more about this whole concept of pleasure because to me it seems to be the biggest lever that you are operating with, right? Because many people would say that a, a, a good life is life filled with pleasure. But I still wonder like how quickly your opinion would change once you have all that pleasure. It's the same thing
It's always a
as
caveat.
playing the game, it's playing it gets old.
Yeah.
If you every
It
day
becomes the norm.
on the beach sipping margaritas, how long will it take you for it's like this
Boring.
is dumb. It's been
This is
boring.
why all these CEOs like,
Nothing's happening.
nah, with 1 month of this, I'm done. I'm going back to work, right? Like
Yeah, more like
this,
1 week.
or yeah, or that. It's just like, yeah, this is not
Yeah.
unsustainable because
Many people have said this. I've heard many celebrities and artists and people with wealth essentially saying it because like, that's not where you find fulfillment.
yeah,
That's like rest, If anything, that's rest, and it has its place in the world. But you do not live life to rest. That's not really it. So I think the answer still has to be somewhere in creating like relational meaning. That's like the most fulfilling part where you still opt out for like new experiences for the most part, but also you like share it with people. You create them together with someone else and you confirm with each other what it means and how to make it better. And this co-creation essentially, I think that's the highest kind of value maybe and thing to follow and pursue.
it's also like again, we go back to this, it's also moderation, right? The idea that it has to be a balance because anything too much of anything is going to be bad. That's just how things are, right? So you have to balance that out. It's just like the dynamics. That's how the real life dynamic. There's always a push and pull, different aspect. It's a yin and yang kind of thing, right? It's like you have to have a little element of the other in any given situation. You can't just have all of this. That's it. This is the only thing that you know. There's never going to be a case in which anything, doesn't matter how pleasurable it is, it will be a bad thing if that's all you have, right? I remember, wasn't there a 40K story of a captured Dark Eldar, and because they're so deprived, so one of the, I don't know if it was a space marine or whatever, they were torturing him for information,
Mhm.
and what they do is just lock him up in a room with
Yeah.
nothing. So the guy craves, like, he craves
Stimulation, yeah.
stimulation. So, like, he just gave up. He's like, no, this is the
Wow.
worst torture ever.
Right.
do something to me. Just
Yeah,
please
yeah,
do
yeah.
something. It's like,
Make
nope,
something happen.
nope, just lock the door and that's
Oh, that's
it. And then
funny.
he's gave up. It's like,
That's
nope,
crazy. Yeah.
because that's how they're wired. Like, give me
That's
all the sensations, right? They're like,
that's the
nope,
real
we're not
torture.
giving you that shit, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, basically that's how you treat. It's like put you in a straitjacket. You can't kill yourself. You can't do anything. There's just a room, right? There's
Right.
nothing you can do. You're just sitting there. That's it.
Torture by boredom.
By boredom, right? So we are a creature of our environment. So like, yes, you can get used to a certain thing to an extreme degree, but eventually there will be a point by which it will break you. You're like, no, this is not it. I can't have this anymore, right? You can't. There is an end to it. There's always a crest and the trough. This is how life is, like this, right? It's like the sine wave. There's always had to be the difference. So that difference is what give you, like, just like desires is the anticipation and the reward, or the disappointment, right? That is what generates the difference. So even the disappointment is part of the game. It's like, as a gambler, you lose, and no, the next one. Because without losing, you wouldn't know how it feels the loss. You need the loss for the win to make sense, right? So it's anything in life is like that. So you can't have
Yeah.
something good without the bad. Just like, no pleasure, no pain. No pain, no gain. This
I
is
mean, from that standpoint, yeah, something like playing the game of Path of Exile becomes like a perfectly legitimate form of entertainment because of that. But really, it's still just taking advantage of all those existing circuits that you
yeah,
could be triggering in all the multiple
yeah,
different ways.
exactly.
Except this is like could be the safest and the cheapest way to do it.
In
But
this
then
economy, you
in
gotta you
this
gotta
economy,
find
yeah,
ways to,
to entertain yourself
what other people do
cheaply.
in the same circuit. They'll be into the dating game. Like they love the idea of getting a girl or getting a guy and then just dump them and then
In
doing the
this
whole thing
economy,
again. But that's too expensive, right? So you gotta have something alternative now, right?
but
But
still,
yeah,
the question becomes, yeah, it's still like some games more valuable than others, because with dating and social life, you could argue that that is going towards something, that at least building, that is continuing your lineage and all these other things, which many would argue is much more substantial and worthy and worthwhile than
yeah.
any freaking game that you can play, right? So again,
Choose your
but that
game
also it depends on what kind of values you hold, right? Some people are very traditional and they kind of recognize that these are the biggest values like family and stuff like that. But why wouldn't every human be like that? Isn't that the
because
base
humans are different.
biological reality?
Humans are different. They're so different, right? Like, even though, yes, you can say that biological drive is everybody has it, but the actual reality is, well, a lot of people have different reasons for why they engage or not engage in certain things that,
Yeah, there's
people
so many
say that,
people who are like consciously they're very child free, like
yeah.
philosophy wise. What is that about? How is that possible?
So you can come up with any rationale of how
Yeah.
you justify your own actions, right? Because yeah, there are different ways to see this because the reality of it is that, yeah, it is a game. This whole dynamic between men and women is still a game. It is, there are rules, there are things, there are, all kinds of things that does involve with the actual mechanics. It does. It is there. And we all kind of know by intuition, that's what that is. But a lot of times there are other factors, right? That really goes into it because it's such a complex thing. You're dealing with emotions, financials, and whatever else. And that's there's a 40 chess, right? How do you play the game? And even if the person's interested, well, how long is that going to last? Or what's the projection of, whatever, right? So it's a messy thing because it involves emotions. And you know how messy that is, right? When you do get in with a person and then somehow if it doesn't work out and then you feel like, oh, I spent all this time and effort and whatever, and now it's not working out. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah,
of,
those stories, dude, they're really scary. Like to be honest, like when you hear this stuff, like how's that even possible? Like, but people, yeah, they get together they like have a multiple years of relationship, and then it ends like in the horrific way where the people literally hate each other. People take like half of the possessions. People split children.
Yeah,
Children suffer. It's like,
creating problems.
what is that? But that's such a huge, a bad thing to
Yeah,
happen in your life
which
that
is
it would suck enormously for that
which is
experience to
why
happen.
almost like this is why people make different decisions, right? You see all these people, some of them, just because the biological drive is there, they're just doing whatever, and they end up
Yeah.
having like so many kids with different, with different partners and whatever, and all
Yeah.
that headache that comes with it. But because they didn't think about it. It's like, yeah, it's how it
But
is.
you don't,
But
you like, there's nothing to think about. You can only hope, right? And if you like meet a person and you like them and the drive is there and
but
you
you know
think
how
you
some
like them,
people are very
etc.
irresponsible with their life decisions in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
aspect, right? They're just
They're
like
the more
doing whatever, and then it's like,
driven
oh,
by
now
their
there's
instincts.
consequences of that. So
Yeah.
different degrees, yeah, but that's the thing. People think very differently. So there's no way to even think that, oh, what doesn't make sense to you. I mean, some other people think that makes sense. So it's
Right,
like
right.
you wouldn't be able to comprehend why they think that way, but somehow they do. So it's like you almost can't dictate why anybody would do or would not do anything, and they will think any other. I mean, I personally, I even myself are definitely fight against the urge of no, not the urge, but like the comprehension of the fact that there are some statistic, right? Like essentially that
I mean,
says,
you'd need to learn that, you'd need to study that person like the most passionate scientist in the
yeah,
world before you were to commit to anything.
but
I think
then
that's
but then they could just make a decision that just like boom, 180
that's
degrees,
that's
right?
that's still on the table. Yeah, that's still on the
So
table.
maybe part of my antisocial self is like I'm so that will be a really horrendous kind of aspect of it. It's just being that this is worse odds than playing blackjack, you know. So it's like this is part of the reason why I don't really get into that because it's like, dude, really, am I really gonna play that game? That seems like this is more
The
risky than my
odds,
crypto bets, you know. It's like
yeah.
and we all know how that went. So,
I mean, it's always just 50-50. Like
is it
it's either
really
gonna work
50-50,
out or not
bro?
work
It's
out.
50-50?
And you never know. Like, how are you gonna calculate that?
Yeah.
Like, there's no equation
And then
for
there's,
anything like that.
again, I know a statistic is what it is. You can't equate that with life experience. Of course, things will be different, but sometimes these statistics just kind of just make you, I don't know. Part of the thing was, I don't know if this
A
is,
statistic, if anything, I think more it's a reflection of the modern time and culture, because there is such a thing that norms that say if you have a bunch of norms that they would normalize a certain behavior, it would be conducive to certain outcomes.
yeah, that's true.
That's a reflection of culture, because there was culture where things were different, and we don't have to name which things and how they were different, but there were different outcomes back there. And it's always like these people are going to say these outcomes are better, these people are going to say these outcomes are
Yeah,
better. But what I find interesting is that there's still going to be people who's going to be dissatisfied a lot, and that's the tricky part about, like, we never seem to be able to agree on anything, on what kind of society to be best, and what kind of norms, on what anything even means, right? That's why, like, it's kind of so fascinating to see some of these debates with more controversial people that go out into the world and just talk to all kinds of people, and you get to see, like, wow, there's all kinds of people live out there that are saying completely opposing things, right? Some completely contradictory things, like literally saying this is black and this is white, to people who are saying no, this is white and this is black. And it's just like, what? How do you live in the same society with these people?
part of it is like, dude, I don't know. It's like part of me is like, I don't want to deal with that. That seems too much drama just to be like, this is why people don't talk about politics, right? Because it's like, oh, he say, she say, I say this, you're
Kind
on
of,
that
yeah.
side. There's
Yeah.
no dialogue. There's no way to talk through that, right? It's like, yeah, you all just have a position and then
and
you're
it's
just,
and it's all situational. It's just, you see, if you found yourself to be this type of person who just lives in this, say, state, and you will be benefiting if somebody, like, I don't know, builds a bunch of good buildings in your state. You'd be just for that because you're biased, you live in there.
Yeah,
It's situational, it's
everybody's
conditional,
biased.
because that's just a logic thing, right? But then if that thing takes resources from this state will be against that. You see what I mean? So somehow this governance needs to be on a local enough level that the funds are taken from the people to whom it would benefit, and those people decide what is the most priority to spend money on. That's the gist of it. But that doesn't happen like that, because if there's a guy at the top who controls too big of a territory, they can't satisfy each of the territory equally at all times. So they distribute their money however, and then plus corruption, plus corruption, plus corruption, you get a shit show.
That's
So
how it is. That's how it
at
works.
at the fundamental level, I mean, we talk about it often, but yeah, the humans need to figure out their government, because we haven't figured it out.
But they can't. They
This ain't
can't
it.
because they can't because of human nature, right? Because look, I don't want to have such a negative view on human nature, but sometimes like, it's almost like, yeah, you can't but to face the fact that we're all a bunch of narcissists and sort of greedy bastards, we all are, right? It's like, yeah, like
And on
for
this positive note, we should be wrapping up
yeah,
as as always.
abundantes, right?
we
It's
we get to the juiciest
the
part.
juiciest part. That's it. I mean, just drop that mic and that's it. I'm gone.
Yeah. That's the conclusion, as always.
In a roundabout way, this is what I have to say.
Yeah.
But it's just, like you see all these things like how do you, like I want to you do see good things in people. Yeah, of course. But then I think we're just complicated, right? We're so complicated that it's just because dude, this is what happens, right? When I watched The Matrix, in that scene when Agent Smith was interrogating Morpheus,
Hmm.
I was totally on his side. I was like, yeah, this virus, this stink. I'm like, yeah, I mean, he's right, right?
He bought you over.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, for sure. We're terrible.
Yeah.
It's in a visceral level. I was in agreement. Like, yep, that's how it seems to
Damn.
be. I mean, he got the program got it.
That's the brilliance of writing in that
It's
movie.
but of course that's one way to look at it. But yeah, it's in a way you see all these things that happening in the world and in those negative things that we do. Like to kind of the extent of it too. It's like yeah, it can make any people mad, really. Like mad as in going mad, right? Oh, this is what's happening, but it is, right? The kind of fallacy and kind of how easy it is for us to be manipulated, to be cruel, to be, all these type of things. And then even in our everyday life, you think about your everyday actions. Yeah, there are times where I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, that was terrible. I shouldn't have. But that's for if a person is actually thinking about their action, right? Which I'm trying to. I try to not make make actions that are actually detrimental to other people and whatnot. I try to, but there are times when like, yeah, it does clash. Your own kind of incentives are clashing with other people, and you have to figure out, okay, how do I solve this? Because apparently it is kind of he say, she say, I want this, you want that. And then it's like, how do we come to an agreement somehow, right? Like, I don't want to be an asshole, but sometimes other people are going to be asshole to you about certain things. Then you kind of have to fight them for it, right? It's like, do I just give up and just let be trampled over? No, you can't do that. So that's where is the like in actual practice, life is hard. We can wax all philosophy and whatever about what's right and what's wrong and what's the right way
Yeah.
to do things. But then when actually push comes to shove, sometimes you do have to make the decision like, okay, is this the best action that I can do? And sometimes you do have to have a firm hand too, because people try to take advantage of you. They do all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, that's been kind of like one of my biggest lessons that I learned viscerally is that at the end of the day, my priority is my agency in
Well-being
how I view things. And my way of life, whatever it is, it's right because I deemed so.
is right for you. Yeah, it's right for
Even
you.
though there can be people with experiences and perspectives from whose perspective they would say, no, this way of life is better for you, check it out. Just because I would not feel like doing that, that would be the priority for me. And I faced it because I've encountered people who wanted me to change my mind, change my lifestyle. And I'm
No.
like, no. And when I realized that that's the priority for me, it's an inescapable fact, essentially. I realized that on my own, I was faced with the situation and I'm like, yeah, because one week I could trust it, I could try it, but if there is this internal, that could be whatever, they could be the ego protecting itself, whatever it is. But if that structural force instead of it's there already, there's nothing for me to do about it because the alternative is that yeah, you give up yourself.
Yeah.
But who's to say what that means? Who's gonna say is if you're not gonna be plugged into someone else's
Yeah.
system, do the
And
bidding
that's
for
what
them?
happens.
Why would you want
And
that?
that's what happens to a lot of us in the modern day, is that we
Yeah,
gave up our agency
yeah,
for comfort or security or whatever, right? So, and this is what, through these conversations, and not just this, but also our conversation privately and then what have you, I start kind of getting to this point. I do agree with you. Like, as I have said in the podcast many times, like, yeah, I start to think that yes, that is the way to go. You have to maintain your own agency. You can't just like, because there's a problem for me, because from my background, cultural background, we are more collectivist in the idea
mm,
that you follow the group, right? That's how the culture is, and you don't, uh, shake the boat or whatever. I'm saying I'm feeling like no, that's the wrong way to go, because you can be manipulated into going this mass psychosis of agreeing with the party line or whatever, right? You're just being manipulated. I mean, yes, there are benefits for socialization and stuff like that, and sometimes you do have to kind of work with other people, and it's like, but the thing is really about agree to disagree, right? We can agree or we can disagree, it's fine, and it's not a problem. So this is fundamentally, I think this is why you need to maintain your own sense of self, a sense of like, this is my way. I'm not saying my way is the right way, but this is right for me. And I'm going to maintain whatever it is that I holds true, right? We can have discussions, we can disagree, but it's fine. You don't have to agree with me. I don't have to agree with you. And we can live our own life and still work together and still, that's the idealized way how things should be. Obviously, in real world, it doesn't happen like that because people want to convince you that they're right, you know? And that's what a lot of people are doing for the sake of
yeah,
money or influence or
yeah.
whatever.
And that's the thing, yeah, you should never forget is that anytime there's any kind of interaction, people will want stuff from you. Yeah, like I still think about that funny example that you told me about where like some dude approached you and wanted you to sell some bullshit
Yeah, so
technology.
MLM bullshit is like,
Yeah,
wow.
it was hilarious, but it's like a prime example that exists that people will want to like go out there and see that they can find dummies enough who believe their claims
Yeah,
and they're like, yeah, if you just do this and this and this, you're gonna be all tip top millionaire. Really?
that's what happens. I mean, it happens to me with crypto, right? All this narrative about, oh, I don't even still don't know how crypto fits into everything, but at least I know what I know is I lost money.
Yeah,
That's what I know,
yeah.
right? So
Which means, yeah, same here. Which means we got sold.
you got sold. Yeah.
Somebody sold this
You were
idea.
somebody else's exit liquidity. That's what you were.
Yes, yes. So the whole thing, I mean, time will tell, but I mean, at this point, it's telling that it's a giant scam because crypto, like most of the crypto, is at an all-time low. I know ADA is at all-time low, like since like 5 years ago or something. So
Now it's changing.
yeah,
So
it's not going like who knows. But you know what I was thinking about it the other day? I was thinking that it could easily be a designed project of transferring a mass amount of
Yeah.
money is just designed to do that over an extended period of
Yeah.
time. Because if a gamble takes 15 years, it doesn't matter if at the end you get trillions of dollars. That's a good investment right there. And that could easily be done and
Yeah.
coordinated
Which
because
is
guess what? Nobody knows the inventor of Bitcoin. How
exactly, that's
convenient.
what they're saying, right? They're saying, right? Oh, the conspiracy is that, oh, it's a CIA thing. Like they
Yeah,
invented all this
could
stuff to
easily be
make
that.
people go into that, and then I mean, that could be. Same thing
At
with
some
AI.
point,
Same thing
maybe
with
we'll
AI,
find out,
right?
but
All
yeah,
these investment into AI, is it really? I mean, a lot of it is a scam, is a trend. It's chasing the
it's a
trends,
bubble,
and
yeah.
it's some people are actively, they actively want you to go into it because they make money, right? In the same way with the SpaceX IPO, they want you to put money into it, and then
Yeah,
you probably the exit liquidity, right? So
that's
it's
the thing, like the biggest thing, especially with like investments, and it's an analogy for the rest of life, because everything is an investment from you. Anytime you put your attention or money or energy
resource, time,
into
energy. Yeah,
something, it's an investment of sorts, right? Because you are expecting something from it. But on the other end, there's always the sales. Somebody is always selling all this stuff, and you have to be so critical about you need to think about the sales side at all times.
yeah.
You buy an ice cream, you better think about it.
They're
Are
trying
you
to
being
sell you.
sold this ice
You're
cream,
being
or
sold, man. You're being
do
sold.
you really need that ice
We're
cream
being
right now?
sold every single day,
Yeah.
and this is why I don't buy stuff. It's like, not, I know I'm trying,
I
uh,
think that's like the best, form of rebellion these days is just to not buy stuff.
yeah, because too much of it is just detached from reality, right? They're selling you all this kind of stuff that just doesn't really do anything other than you spend the money.
Yeah.
Like, I get that modern society is run on consumerism, right? So without people buying stuff, then the whole economy would stop. But I don't know. There's so much stuff being sold to us that it's not worth the. I mean, and also, in this economy, I mean, really, are you gonna be start buying
But I
stuff?
think that would have to be a part. I mean, that's going to be a whole other discussion. We're going to have to do maybe another podcast on that. I think that's a good topic too. I'm going to put it down as one of the future topics. Essentially, part of our thing that we could try and find a way to solve the global human
Oh
problem.
my
That's it.
God,
We're going to solve it.
we
We're going to
going
take it
that.
on ourselves. Yeah, yeah. They say pick a goal bigger than your life, and this could be it.
This is
That could be an acceptable ambition for me. It's like we could be the ones that solve the the whole human conundrum for everything, the economy, the whole shebang. We're gonna solve it all. You just gotta believe in yourself, because reality isn't dream and shit.
and welcome to
Why stop there?
and welcome to Costco. We love you. It's so
But yeah, the solution, like I think part of the solution is changing our relationship with consumerism and production because, well, guess what? So many people are complaining about how much work we have to do these days. Well, there's a direct correlation with how much we consume. So maybe we should adjust both and chill the hell out and everybody will be happier. That's got to be part of the equation.
yeah. But the problem is the inertia, and also
Yeah, there's
the
always that.
people in power and people in position of influence. They don't want that. They want you to be that slave. This is what I realized about we talked about this already before, and talk about the education system is, to me, I agree with the sentiment that it's totally a scam. It's it's designing a way to basically churn out robots, right? Churn out human robots, drones to just work, right? That's it. I mean, there's no other way for me to comprehend that other than that. It's just, that's everything is kind of work toward that, and everybody is playing along that game, right? Our parents get bamboozled. Everybody bought into that. It's like, yeah, you gotta, what's a typical line? Again, it's just go to school, have good scores, and go to good school, and then get a good job.
No,
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That's the crux of all these discussions and my questioning line because before you do any of that, how about you sit down and think this through?
Yeah.
Imagine all these things and
Yeah.
all these factors and all these players and all these forces, and really do decide for yourself, what are you in all of this, and what do you want any of that for? Because if you just start doing that process, you'll see that the rabbit hole goes deep, and
But the
it's not as
problem,
simple.
but the problem is when you were young, right? When you're making those
Yeah,
decisions,
you
you
don't
don't know
have
what's better.
you don't have
Dude, I
anything, any
wasted
idea.
4 years with an art degree, bro. You know that. In a way, it is wasted, okay? But yeah, you make decisions.
But it's part of
You
the
don't.
learning experience.
Yeah, but you gotta make. You would make
It's like,
mistakes.
hey, look what can happen, eh?
Yeah,
You can waste
you
four
can waste
years of
four
your
years of
life
your life doing
on
nothing,
some random
random
stuff,
shit.
and that is
It's
real.
totally random. You saw what I did for graduation and all that stuff, like projects. Like, oh my god,
That was
that
insane,
was
bro.
insane piece, man. Just performance art, just standing there for hours until I collapse. Like that's the performance. Like wow, right? That's what I used to do. I'm crazy as fuck, man. I used to be crazy as fuck. Now I'm mellowed out. Okay, I'm mellowed out. I'm totally mellow now. I don't do that stuff
You
anymore.
thought that was important, okay?
Yeah, now I spend my energy talking about stuff. It's instead of doing crazy shit like that. But that's the life experience, right? Sometimes, yeah, when you were young, it's like you don't know what's good,
You don't know anything.
right? And you have the idea that, oh, I should learn all about this, but you still don't have enough experience to really understand, oh, is this really true or not? So no matter what, life is full of pitfalls and whatever. And sometimes I guess you just have to be strong enough to kind of tumble and find your way the hard way because there's no easy way, right? There's a whole bunch of like okay, imagine as a kid you growing up. Well, first you listen to your parents, but your parents aren't always going to be right, right?
Oh yeah.
Your siblings aren't always going to be right. Your teacher are not going to be always right. But then you have to listen to somebody because you don't know nothing, right? So any knowledge that you accumulate is really based on somebody else told you. So there is no choice in that. Like before you have your own agency, when you grow old enough, you don't have that agency. You just accept stuff passively, right? And that's the part of the problem. It's like, well, you can't curate your growing up experience. All the time, these things are not decided for you, so you have no
Yeah.
choice. So, but I guess the question is how do you adapt? And once you do have your agency, how well can you become self-aware enough to see what
Yeah.
the potential problem that may have resulted?
Yeah.
It's always fixing stuff, because when you grow old
Mm.
enough, it's like, oh yeah, I might have these tendencies because you got mistreated when you're young or
But
whatever.
that seems to be kind of like the journey of human life. Is that there? We covered before that you're born with all these circumstances that you never defined or chose, and gradually they're like a snowball that accumulate in
Yeah,
you, where there's enough of a conscious, self-referential ego or some kind of structure, right?
yeah,
Which is able to see, oh, okay, I'm formed. Have all these, but I have all these symptoms and experiences that I'm participating in. Why? Why all these patterns? And you start this process of self-analysis, and maybe you get a little bit of insight and you get to change things consciously. So you start to consciously kind of modify yourself and
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
upgrade and self-improvement, and then probably a bunch of other stuff happens where maybe you can transcend the self or something. But it's definitely part of the process that somehow you kind of do, if you're, I guess, lucky enough or maybe unlucky enough to get conscious and self-conscious about what is happening to you and what's your role in it and what's your power and responsibility in all of this. But I think this is what I want to go into the next episode. It's the individuation part, and we can check out the Young's kind of contribution
it,
to that. But it's that.
yeah. And it's also part of that. Again, this is a perspective from an introvert person. But I think one of the benefit of that, and maybe perhaps, maybe, and I don't know if because how I'm saying is part of the benefit of being an introverted person is that you are introspective by nature, right? I feel like I might be wrong. I'm just projecting here, but I feel like extroverted people are so affected by their surroundings. I don't know. Oftentimes they would not have the time or space to kind of be introspective. So
That's what I'm also so very curious about, because anytime I observe the extroverted people, like their reality is like very much physical
Yeah, it's
in
social.
terms of it's
It's
social, it's physical, but it's like here. So as opposed to, yeah, introvert is so much more in the inside world, whether it's imagination or thinking, whatever you
yeah,
want to
meaning
call
that
it.
because you're by yourself, introverted person by yourself, looking at things, observing. But an extroverted person don't have the time to do that. You're
They're
interacting
in
with
it.
people.
Yeah,
You're
they're
in it.
they're they're in
So for
it.
you to have that extra kind of like, I mean, I'm maybe they do. I don't know. But I feel like by and large, introverted people are more. I wouldn't say more self-aware, but like they're more likely to have that kind of introspection, and therefore they're aware of what they're doing, and y- y- like they're more analyzing
Yeah.
it. So in that way, you have a
I think so. That's what I noticed as well. But that I don't know how to like label it exactly, because of course we're still all people. We still all have feelings and thoughts and ideas and self ideas. But I don't know. It
yeah.
seems like, yeah, they're just much more. How would you characterize that behavior?
Because the fact you're
Not
interacting.
thoughtless,
No,
but
but
like
like
they are much
it,
more.
so
Is it more organic? Like they're just more impulsive? Like how do you say this?
I mean, they just work with this with other people. They're just more in that setting. They work, but then I'm not saying they won't understand the dynamic or anything. But I feel like because that's how I feel in my personal experience, where
They're more emotional though, right? That's the
which
part of the
affects
equation always.
how you look at the world, though. It colors your vision. Because when you are observing, you're
It's more
devoid.
relational.
Yeah, you're devoid of that feeling or whatever. You're just observing the world, right? So you're able to pick up some of the stuff that you know that
You're naturally a part of it,
yeah.
apart from it,
So,
right? When you
so
are like,
the reason I'm saying
directly
this
observing it.
is because in my personal experience, how I felt like why I'm not saying I'm more self-aware, but like I'm more in tune into like, oh, I can discuss all this stuff with you because I've been observing all this stuff throughout my life.
Right.
I'll
Right.
be
Right.
more, with a lack of better word, I'm more self-aware in that way. Like I'm always self-aware about where I am or how I fit into all this stuff.
Right. Right.
Meaning
Right.
that my decisions, even though I made some stupid decision, of course, but it feels like this is what we're talking about. Like what you would want in your life is have more of that introspection, kind of like finding yourself in relation to where you are, and that way you can make better decisions. Like as opposed to just purely living in life without even reflecting on anything. As there are cases of people basically go through their life without even thinking about any of this deeper kind of connection. They're just like, okay, I go to school, I get a job, I do all these things, I marry, I have kids, and now I have a good life. Oh, this is a good life. I'm not saying it's bad, but oftentimes, I don't know, they will have these questions that they can't answer because, but really the answer is if you actually be more introspective, you will see the problem, right? And they will encounter all these problems without them knowing because they're just actively in it. They're not kind of, they will think that, oh, the world sucks or this and that, or it's the spouse's problem and not mine or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it's
They never
never
think
thought
about
about. This is why
the
therapy is
causal
like, the
relationships, right?
therapy, what it does is it's an introspection. It's like a third eye. It's like, you got to live
Yeah. Yeah.
outside
You're
yourself,
looking at the thing to
right?
understand what actually is happening.
So that's what I'm saying. I feel like in my personal experience, I'm getting more of that. That's just my nature. But I feel like perhaps this is what we're talking about. Like as a person, I mean, yes, we all made mistakes, but you will want yourself to be more introspective like this, right? Where you're like, okay, my actions have consequences. I need to figure out, okay, what's the best action or this and that, how it affects me and learn from the experience. I think a person would be better off when they constantly question themselves, being that self-referential awareness of like, okay, what have I done wrong? If I did something, the result is not what I want. Okay, what did I do wrong? See, when you start questioning yourself, that's the first thing you do. It means
But
that
for some reason, see, the society
they
comprised
don't.
by both. Like they're both extroverts and both introverts, and we all have our functions and reasons. So for some reason, that's the balance. It's done like that for a reason, I believe. It's not like the world would be better off if there were only introverts in the world, right? That wouldn't work also. It's a balance
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's a yin and yang. For some reason it is like that because both are needed. They're just applicable in different situations and excel at different things. So even that you couldn't say as universally as that, right? Maybe if those people were too, self-aware or introspective,
Then they
yeah,
wouldn't be doing
they
the,
wouldn't be able to do what they're able to do
yeah,
because
that's
what they
true
are.
as well.
So
It's
that's
a
the
different
trouble, is
mode.
that you can't say. It's like, it's like an ecosystem. You can't take away, mosquitoes, because then everything crumbles.
But
So
it feels
in
like,
the chain.
to me, it seems self-evident that this is how you would want.
Well, because of you, because that's who you are.
Yeah.
Because
So
that's how you see the world. Yeah, that makes sense to you. Everything else doesn't make sense.
so
Everybody else
everything
is a
else doesn't make
moron.
sense. Yeah. Everything else doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's the
So
trouble, is that this is the nature of the subjective reality, is that you can only see and imagine it through your mind.
yeah.
You cannot even conceive what extroverts are doing or dealing with.
Yeah. So that's the
That's the
problem then.
limitation.
It's
Yeah.
like, I think this is the right way, but yeah, you got to figure it out for yourself. Okay, But
It's just because you're you.
but I would say that, wouldn't you say that this kind of introspection is very useful? Obviously, you can figure out
Yeah.
what you did wrong,
Yeah, yeah.
or
I think it has to be part of the practice, so to
to be
say,
more
for
conscious
anybody.
of
Yeah,
your
yeah,
own
yeah.
actions, because
It's still beneficial,
like
right?
you see so many people, right? From road rage to whatever, like they're not thinking, they're just doing whatever feels like, there's too many people doing that.
And things can be habitual too. It can become habitual. That's the reason to work on stuff, because you can make things into habits. And I mean, for this reason alone, I do think that knowledge and some self-improvement does have some place, in every human's life, because without it, yeah, you could just give in into every freaking impulse you have,
Yeah.
a lot of which are very base. But then, yeah, we wouldn't be any different from animals. That's like, the fact that we have three brains is the craziest stuff, dude. This is like we're some kind of an experiment or something,
Yeah.
because we
It
have
is.
to reconcile the different brains. That's a tall order, dude. All these things have different jobs and different applications and evolved in different eras and stuff. And now we have to reconcile all of this.
It's like, look, this is what happened, right? Somehow we expect full int. That's what happened. Because of the big brain, it's biologically, it is very difficult to give birth and very difficult to take care. Like the kids had to grow for what? For our reference, we had to be taken care of for 18 years, basically, right? Until you're an adult, you can do your own thing. But
Right.
basically, even as a infant or
At
toddler or
least for a
whatever,
few
for a
years, for
few
sure.
years, you have to be taken care of for a few years. Animals don't have that much that time, right? So we expect so strangely in nature. Like we just spend all on int, like no other, thing, and just to build this brain, and it takes such an effort and energy to kind of grow, right? So you're very vulnerable physically. This is why people are social animals, because you got to protect everybody, because all the kids are vulnerable. They can't do nothing. It's not like a deer; they just get born and basically 3 seconds they start running, right? You
Right.
don't have that. So, but they spec into agility or whatever, right? So they can work that way. But we are gimped in all other ways. So we need that time to grow, but then this really works, right? When the build get into gear, it's everything start working, because we can start thinking, we can start using our brain. We beat everybody, right? We animal kingdom, nothing can get us. We figure out how to build stuff and how to essentially, build all this stuff to protect us and grow into our modern kind of society and things like that, right? So plan and everything. So that all because we have all this structure, physical structure here to kind of allow that to happen. Because if you don't have that many brain, I just say, or that much resources dedicated to this, then you would just be like some animals where, like I just recently saw the video
Just
in,
dealing with direct environment.
yeah, in Africa, these wildebeest, these like bisons, I think what they call
Oh,
it.
yeah, yeah.
There would be large herds of them in Africa, and they there was a video of them massive dying in a dried out pool, and what happened was just bodies everywhere, hundreds of them just drowned. And the reason why is they're instinctual animals, so they will
Hmm.
run in large groups and they have no brain enough to figure out that this is actually bad if you're gonna, because the water is deep. You're not supposed to go through this. And they all do because of instinct. And they're all
Right.
group instinct. So they all went through there and they just drowned.
Damn.
That's how dumb they are. Like, it's just literally everything instinct, nothing, no amount of, whatever. Nobody can save them because they're just too dumb to
Yeah,
figure
did
it
not
out.
compute that that's gonna happen.
Yeah, so they will just all drown
Huh.
because of the group think. Like, oh, we need to run. We need to
Yeah.
the instinct to run.
Yeah, then intellect then is definitely about foresight. It's reading the environment and doing the 2+2s and seeing where things will lead.
Yeah,
It's
and
this calculation of reality
yeah, I
essentially.
mean, they are smart animals, right? Like crows and whatever. Yeah, they're problem solving. They can figure out,
Yeah,
oh, this way, if I do this, I get this, and So in a way, yeah, animals are not all dumb. They're different kind of levels of intelligence.
yeah,
You have like,
yeah. Like freaking cats, man. They're really smart.
yeah, they
They
can
can do
understand you
they can
basically,
see
right?
they can see like, okay,
Cats
this
and
guy is heading
dogs,
from
yeah,
there. I can go on this tree and like crouch and jump on. They can freaking plan.
and like they can understand language too. I'm amazed at these dogs. Like they will have buttons, say yes or no
Right.
or whatever, and they will press it.
Yeah.
They hear you say it, asking them a
Yeah.
question. They will show you, oh, this is what you're
Yeah,
talking about. Or,
that's the craziest stuff, dude. That means like the animals actually understand what's going on. They're like, okay, there's this guy, and he's communicating with me, and he means that. They recognize meaning, which is again, it's still relational, but the intelligence and intellect allows you to decode the meaning.
yeah, and what amazes me is those whales, man. The whale songs are like, it's so specific. You can have different people, the different groups of them have different languages and whatever by the tones that they
Mm,
sing, and there are also some. There was like a case of the loneliest whale because they sing. He's only sing this song that nobody, like basically categorically, no other whale sings, so nobody can understand him, but he just saying like just all
mm,
by himself. It's but it's they communicate through these sonic waves. Like it's amazing.
yeah,
It's fascinating how these communications and they understand, right? They understand different. They have even language. Like they have different
yeah.
way to communicate about things. So
It's an actual language.
it's this is why the world is amazing in that way. Like wow, there's all these creatures and organisms finding ways to figure out their environments, right? And we are part of that. But the question is like, well, we might think we're smart, but man, we're making some dumb decision, right?
Yeah,
Some really short-sighted stuff that affects the environment, that affects everything, and I don't know. As smart as we are, sometimes we're too smart for our own good, and we're doing all these things that are like without thinking about the long-term consequences. Now we're gonna pay the price, That's part of it. Is these things
yeah.
do come around. It's not, yeah,
It's just how do we share that responsibility? Because this who is to organize everybody and who's responsible for doing the right things. It's all very strange and paradoxical as well because technically we all are responsible,
and that's the
but
problem. You see, we have our modern world, and the way things are done, the way they are, is because well, everybody is going through the program of like, what do I get? And that's in a way, I'm not saying this is exactly good or bad, but like it's how it is, and that actually do impede the progress that you were trying to make. Because for example, when they build a bridge or when they build the road, when they repave the road or whatever, here in Canada, it's slow as hell because everybody's like, well, what about me? If I'm the one paying it, where's my money? Right? So that's what impedes it. If everybody have an understanding, okay, this is for the common good, we all do it, we all take a price cut, whatever, things will be done. Only because everybody consider, well, I'm trying to get more money, and if you're not paying me this right now, then I'm not doing it. This is why the progress is not there because you got to force them or you have to pay them enough money for them to do the thing. But then there's corruption. There's, well, I need more money, or somehow the work is hard or whatever. Right? There's all kind of matter that goes into it. So everything that happens in the modern economy, all the stoppages or slow progress, whatever, there's a reason why. Because everybody is looking at their balance sheet and like, well, I'm not doing this if I'm not getting paid for this amount of money or whatever, right? So this is what creates that ebb and flow, essentially, right? So if we reorganize humanity, well, yeah, there probably could be a way where we're very efficient at doing these things and making everything work for everybody. If we have the agreement, everybody on the same page that, okay, we're going to do this because this is good for us and we all have to pitch in or what have you, right? When it comes to like my rights, your rights, blah, 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 I'm not saying that's wrong. Certainly we do have to respect people's right to do these things, but sometimes you could have to work together. Otherwise, all these kind of not my backyard kind of attitude is just not going to change the thing for the better for everybody, because you're just impeding progress, where you're just like, oh, just because of I have my benefit and I don't care about you, and I only care about me, and screw you. And well, this is where we are, right? All the drama, all the things, because somehow, I mean, I don't have the solution, right? I don't know how are you supposed to figure all this out, but you do see the problem on either way. Like if you don't work together, things goes
We'll
down.
figure it out one episode at a time. But for today, we got to wrap it out because we're not going to solve it out today.
God, yeah,
and we've already been going. We gave our best shot.
That's too deep,
today.
Man. This is you gotta. No, I don't know, man. Every time we have this conversation, it gets too deep, and I just go ballistic.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you can start with whatever, but we end up, following the thread.
End up being a rant. I'm sorry, but yeah.
No. But that's why we do it. It's just, I think this is the good process, because organically we go out to these little different domains and topics, which that's what helps me out, kind of also create a backlog and explore some of these ideas next, because you can see how we're kind of progressing, right? We're taking a little different little directions, but there is still progress. It's, at the very least, this is like a philosophical exploration, right? Amateur style,
yeah.
But it's still like this
armchair philosophy.
Yeah, armchair philosophy that explores all these burning questions. They are burning, and stuff naturally comes to mind. So this is just what it looks like. But at the end of it, it may take us a few years, but we're going to solve it, Then
who's wasting time, okay? We got to figure it out, okay? Is it you or me?
It's going to take us a few years, but ultimately we're going to figure out who's wasting time.
No, I think at the end of it, we realize we both wasted our time. This is what
that's gonna be, yeah.
But this
foreshadowing. But
maybe that's the metaphor for humanity. We're just doing a whole bunch of idiotic things, just because. I mean, that's the experience. This is a human experience, just doing bullshit.
We could just be kind of the most entertaining form of life in God's dream in this part of reality. Could be a humans, like this is some random ass.
We're just amusing ourselves.
Stuff. Yeah.
I mean, but hey,
that could be us.
I would say that, well, God, you have nothing to complain about, because hey, you made this shit. Okay, so it's your problem.
Enjoy.
You want me to do something else? Tell me. Or what do you want me to do? Okay, because I need some guidance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this either means that even God doesn't know it, or
doesn't care.
It all goes according to the God's plan, and there's nothing for us to figure out because it's all been taken care of. Pick your thing to believe,
or God just love watching you waste your time.
It's like, what are they gonna do? Let's see. You have full freedom. You can do whatever you want.
But this is what they
mind
choose?
that never stops.
Oh.
It's like, what? They've been playing Path of Exile for 12 hours straight.
God's reaction is
you're gonna die, right?
God's reaction is like, oh, yeah, they wasted their time.
This is so absurd, right? Speak absurdity. I love it.
Yeah, that's probably that's God's pastime. Yep. Deep fry shit.
Could be. So there you go, God. Enjoy.
Stay tuned.
We'll think of something interesting for next episode. Yeah, until then, stay crispy.